I turned my everyday skills into divine powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. The food was so delicious that I forgot about the main thing. Waiter, take your order. Guests, eager to sample the new offerings, began placing their orders one after another. The entire restaurant staff and kitchen staff were immediately bustling with activity. Sir, what would you like to drink? We have Lansheng and Lanling wines. Lanling wine, of course. Because of that poem, I want to try it too. Bring me a pot. Okay, sir, please wait a moment. Meanwhile, the literati and scholars, drawn from the surrounding paintings and calligraphy, arrived at the tables and took their seats. With the restaurant filling up, they feared there would be no room if they didn't take their seats. But as they sat, they continued to reflect on the poems they had just read. Their hearts were restless for a long time. It wasn't until the waiter arrived to ask what they wanted that they came to their senses. As the guests sampled the Lanling wine, their praises continued. This Lanling wine is truly even better than Lansheng wine. This is truly fine wine. Lanling wine is like tulips, amber colored in a jade bowl. It's as beautiful as this poem. Excellent wine. I thought Lansheng wine was already the best, but I didn't expect this Lanling wine to be the true nectar of jade. It's so delicious. I really didn't disappoint. Waiter, bring another pot. Shopkeeper Meng, I'm sure your Lanling wine will be all the rage again. Yes, good wine needs no bush. Wine this fine is sure to be a favorite among drinkers. Haha, compared to the wine in your shop, that Wanhan wine is simply unpalatable. This is truly fine wine. We'll have a taste for it from now on. Such a fine wine, I'm going to take a jar home later to treasure. The guests were in high spirits, generous with their praise. As the dishes arrived one after another, the guests' exclamations of admiration became even more unstoppable. The delicious food and wine completely captivated the taste buds of the guests present, and satisfaction seemed written across everyone's face. Before long, the entire restaurant was completely packed. Seeing this overflowing scene, Meng Shuyan was filled with joy. She believed that after today, Xiang Manlao would once again become famous throughout the city. Waiter, are there any seats available? 3 men entered the doorway again. Sorry, sir, we are currently seated. If you don't mind waiting a moment, you can come over here and have some tea, the waiter said with a smile. Okay, we'll wait a while then. The 3 men followed the waiter to the chairs by the wall and sat down. As they walked, their eyes flickered around, their expression slightly quizzical. Seeing them, Meng Shulian immediately became wary. Having run the restaurant for several years, she had seen all sorts of customers daily and naturally had a keen eye. So, when she saw these 3 men enter, she had a vague feeling that something was amiss. Recalling the one family's past tactics, she immediately became wary. After all, one must be cautious. Xiang Manlao reopened today, and with the one family's narrow minds, it was impossible for them to do nothing. However, she remained impassive and instructed the waiter to carefully monitor the 3 people. She then quietly made her way to the 2nd floor. She found Guo Pai Xiu, who was entertaining guests with Wei Yi, and shared her suspicions with him. I'll have them kicked out, Guo Pai Xiu said with a sullen look. Not yet. I can't be 100% certain, but as a precaution, I'll have the waiter keep a close eye on those 3 people. You also go get some more people to wait inside, and we'll act accordingly, Meng Shuyan said. Okay, I'll be right there. Guo Pai Xiu nodded and immediately left the restaurant through the back door. Meng Shulian returned to the 1st floor. Customers were arriving again, and the waiting tables at the entrance were running low. Many people were forced to wait outside. After a long wait, the 3 men finally found a table. Once the waiter had cleared the table, they too took their seats. The leader of the 3 was Lu Runian, who had been sent by Wanzai to cause trouble. According to the plan, they would drink some wine later, and then clash with another group, drawing swords and engaging in a ferocious brawl. He wasn't actually willing to take on this dirty job, much less offend Wei Yi. But the money the one family offered him was tempting. Just by making a scene, he could pocket several hundred taels of silver and leave. That would be enough to buy a house in a small town and marry a beautiful wife. So, he gritted his teeth and took on the dirty work. Seated at the table, Lu Runian ordered a few of his favorite dishes and a pot of Lanling wine. While waiting for his table, he'd heard the customers raving about the food. A fellow wine lover, he wanted to try it and see just how good it was. The waiter brought the Lanling wine to the table. Lu Runian eagerly poured himself a small bowl of wine. The aroma was so fragrant it instantly perked him up, his eyes sparkling. He immediately took a deep sip. The wine smacked his lips like nectar, his face filled with surprise and satisfaction. What a fine wine. Lu Runian gazed at the wine and the bowl with excitement, as if he had found a treasure. Although he had some expectations after hearing the guests' praise, he hadn't expected this Lanling wine to be so truly amazing. The two people at the table also took a swig, equally astonished by the wine. They couldn't help but exclaim, "It's fucking delicious." Yes, there are such fine wines in the world. Come on, fill me up again. I want one too. Come on, boss, let me toast you. Before the food even arrived, Lu Runian and the other two had already emptied the entire pot of wine. Still not satisfied, he quickly asked the waiter to bring 3 more pots, determined not to stop until he was drunk. Just then, the dishes they ordered arrived. The sight of the vibrant colors and fragrant aromas whetted Lu Runian's appetite. He immediately picked up his chopsticks and began to dig in. He was once again captivated by the rich, savory flavors. This dish is amazing. Delicious. Try this, it's even better. Gosh, this is insanely good. Don't just eat. Come on, another toast. The perfect pairing of wine and food left Lu Runian and the other two feeling incredibly satisfied and overjoyed. For a moment, they were completely immersed in this culinary feast. The more they drank, the more excited they became, clinking glasses and devouring the food. Their food was so delicious, they completely forgot the purpose of their visit. Not far away, 2 men at another table kept stealing glances at Lu Runian, but they didn't see him signaling. They didn't dare act rashly. After all, they had to wait for his instructions. Across the street from Xiangmen Lao, a carriage was parked on the curb. Wan Zai sat in the carriage, secretly lifting a corner of the curtain and peering into Xiangmen Lao. Why is there no movement? What are these guys doing? Wan Zai said impatiently. After waiting for a while, he saw Lu Runian and his companion, supporting each other, approach the store in trance. Behind them followed someone. Meng Shulian. Shopkeeper Meng, please stay, said the tipsy Lu Runian. Today's Lanling wine is so delicious. We brothers will come back again. Okay, you're always welcome, Meng Shulian said with a smile. Lu Runian smiled and waved, then staggered out of Xiangmen Lao with his companions, a cheerful smile on his face. But after walking a distance, Lu Runian suddenly stopped. Bewildered, he said, "Hey, I think I forgot something." "What is it?" asked his drunken companion. "I forgot to buy a jar of wine to take back," Lu Runian said. "It's not too late to buy it tomorrow." Wan Zai followed the three of them, listening to their conversation, and was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Chapter 77 The Princess Arrives. Watching Lu Runian and the other two depart, Meng Shulian felt bewildered. She'd clearly felt those people were strange, likely sent by the Wan family to cause trouble. But to her surprise, they were actually here to eat and drink. Did I see it wrong? Meng Shulian shook her head, not dwelling on it any further. After all, it was always better to be on guard. After all, facing such a despicable and shameless enemy as the Wan family, it was always better to be on guard. Retracting her gaze, Meng Shulian couldn't help but glance at the two people not far away, looking strange, still pretending to drink. From her observation, they were probably part of the group. Sure enough, not long after Lu Runian and the other two left, the two also paid their bill and left. Seeing this, Meng Shulian couldn't help but confirm her previous suspicions. These people were definitely here to cause trouble. It was just that the leader had suddenly changed his mind. Perhaps he noticed I'd noticed their anomaly. Or perhaps the wine and food at our restaurant were so delicious that they changed their minds. Just as she was pondering this, a large group suddenly entered the doorway. Almost all of them wore the same blue Confucian robes. They were the scholars and students of King Feng Academy. Leading the group was the academy's president, the renowned literary master Du Shaoling. What's going on? Looks like someone from King Feng Academy is here. Look, it's Master Du. The sudden entrance of this large group of scholars immediately caught the attention of the patrons. Meng Shulian immediately stepped forward to greet them. But Du Shaoling merely returned the greeting and headed straight for the calligraphy and paintings adorning the walls. Gazing at the poems on the walls, Du Shaoling was instantly overwhelmed with excitement. Yes, these are the poems. These are the poems. Great. We've finally found their source. Du Shaoling exclaimed with immense excitement. The scholars and students behind him also gazed with a burning excitement, their faces filled with admiration as they gazed at the poems on the wall. Seeing the expressions of the King Feng Academy crowd, the restaurant's patrons were also astonished, their voices buzzing with wonder. It turned out the people at King Feng Academy weren't here to eat, but to admire the exquisite calligraphy and paintings. Where's shopkeeper Wei? Where is shopkeeper Wei? May I see shopkeeper Wei? Du Shaoling eagerly glanced around, his excitement evident. Although some of the poem on the wall had been altered, the calligraphy style suggested it was from the same hand as the manuscript the princess had found. He had never imagined that the soulmate he'd been searching for would be the owner of this very restaurant, the city's 5th-rank swordsmith Wei Yi. To be honest, he hadn't really known Wei Yi before. He'd only just heard his student mention him. But then, Wei Yi, entertaining guests in a private room on the 2nd floor, suddenly saw numerous golden points of light emerge from the void and merge into his sea of consciousness. He'd actually seen some of these golden points appear not long ago and had been somewhat surprised. Until recently, the golden points had mostly only appeared at night. He hadn't expected so many to appear today, during the day. This made Wei Yi ponder once more the source of the golden light. As he pondered this, a waiter ran over and respectfully announced, "Boss, Master Du of King Feng Academy wishes to see you." Master Du? Wei Yi was surprised. He knew who Master Du was. He was the literary master his predecessor admired the most. He was taken aback by the sudden request. But on second thought, he guessed the reason. It must have been the poetry in the restaurant that had drawn this literary master. "Okay, I'll be down now," Wei Yi said to the guests and immediately headed downstairs. Before he reached the 1st floor, he saw the King Feng Academy staff, including Du Shaoling, gazing at him with intense gazes. He also recognized several of them. One was Li Xiao, the 3rd son of Magistrate Li. The others were former classmates. Looking at these people, Wei Yi's heart stirred, and he vaguely thought of the source of the golden light. "Young Master Wei, I'm glad to finally meet you," Du Shaoling said excitedly. He was genuinely surprised to see Wei Yi before him. While Wei Yi's gentle, refined demeanor perfectly matched his style of writing and poetry, he was also surprised by his youth. After all, his poems gave the impression of being the work of someone with extensive life experience. Of course, a person's experience and understanding of life can't be solely measured by age. "Greetings, Master Du." Wei Yi bowed, unsure of what Master Du meant by that. "Young Master Wei, may I have a private chat with you?" Du Shaoling added. He had so much to say to Wei Yi, so much to ask him. The restaurant was too noisy for a quiet conversation. "Very well, then, please come to my humble abode," Wei Yi said with a smile. Du Shaoling dismissed the scholars from the academy. He followed Wei Yi to the Wei family compound. Upon entering the courtyard, Du Shaoling was surprised to see the large group of cats. But then he immediately remembered what Susha had said. He understood why there were so many cats. Perhaps those people, unable to send the cats away, abandoned them, only to have Wei Yi adopt them. He truly was a kind-hearted man. Inside the carriage outside the One Family restaurant, a tipsy Lu Runian smiled and said, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Wan. I've been drinking so much that I've forgotten what I was doing." Once I was speechless. Lu Runian added, "Since the matter wasn't resolved, we won't accept the money. Also, please find someone else to handle this matter. I'm a wine lover, and I hope to drink more at Xiangmenlao in the future. Get lost." Wan Zai cursed angrily. Lu Runian bowed and dismounted the carriage. Then, leading a few of his followers, he staggered away. His expression, however, was one of immense ease and contentment, as if his soul had found some kind of spiritual release. Wanzai sat in the carriage, his face etched with sorrow. He truly didn't know how to explain this to his father. He was deeply upset that Lu Runian had turned against him at the last minute. But just then, the carriage curtain was lifted, and one of his attendants said in a deep voice, "Young master, the master wants you upstairs." Wanzai hesitated before dismounting and entering his own restaurant. In the upstairs private room, facing his father's inquiries, Wanzai could only recount the entire incident to Wang Yunchang. His words filled the faces of the restaurant owners, who had been waiting to see what was happening, with a mixture of disappointment and surprise. Wang Yunchang's expression was even more grimacing. This outcome was completely unexpected, and it left him with a burning pain. The very people he had sent to cause trouble had chosen to betray him simply because they liked their wine. This was even more humiliating than if they had been beaten out by the people from Xiangmen Lao. After a brief silence, several shopkeepers spoke again. Is the Lanling wine at Xiangmen Lao really so alluring that those hooligans are willing to pay hundreds of taels of silver for it? This is ridiculous. Send someone to the restaurant and buy a jar of wine. Let's try it. I want to see what kind of magic this wine has. Just now I saw those scholars from King Feng Academy go to the restaurant together. I wonder what they did there. What on earth has Xiangmen Lao done? Everyone stood at the window, gazing at Xiangmen Lao not far away, their hearts swaying heavily. It felt as if a huge rock was weighing down their hearts. The Xiangmen Lao banners were dazzling, even a little intimidating. But just then, there was a sudden commotion on the street not far away. A team of sword-wielding guards, escorting a luxurious carriage, arrived. Judging by their attire, they were the guards of Prince Jingan's palace. Under the guard of the guards, the luxurious carriage stopped at the entrance of Xiangmen Lao. Immediately, a noble and elegant figure stepped down from the luxurious carriage. It was none other than the princess of the Jingan Palace, Zhao Jinsi. Chapter 78. That was my previous life. Seeing Princess Zhao Jinsi enter Xiangmen Lao, Wang Yunchang and his son, along with the other restaurant owners present, fell silent once more. Shock crossed their faces. This was the princess of the Jingan Palace. While she often traveled around the city, she mostly stayed in elegant places, never in crowded, noisy places like restaurants. Even if she craved a dish from a particular restaurant, it was usually delivered. Yet, today, Xiangmen Lao opened, and the princess had actually come in person to show her support. When had Xiangmen Lao become associated with the Jingan Palace again? Everyone's hearts trembled, feeling the weight weighing on them was no longer just a rock, but a mountain. Xiangmen Lao was like an unshakable mountain. Wang Yunchang and Wanzai exchanged a glance, both father and son's expressions grim. Inside Xiangmen Lao, the entire restaurant suddenly fell silent at the sight of Princess Zhao Jinsi entering. Many people's attention was instantly drawn to the dazzling and elegant Zhao Jinsi. Surprise could not help but flicker in their eyes. Walking in with her was a young woman in red. It was none other than General Lin's daughter, Lin Zuna. She was also the city's most dazzling martial arts prodigy. Rumor had it that her meridians opened at the age of 6, and she entered the rank at 8. Now, at 17, she had already become a 6th rank martial artist. She and Princess Zhao Jinsi had grown up together and had a close relationship. They were inseparable, and she was considered one of Zhao Jinsi's personal guards. Of course, Zhao Jinsi, who came from a martial arts family, was no ordinary person. Her martial arts aptitude was not bad either, but she disliked practicing martial arts, only occasionally practicing when forced to by her elders. But now, she had reached the 9th rank. Meng Shulian was also greatly surprised to see Zhao Jinsi arrive. She had never imagined that the princess of the Jingan Palace would visit their restaurant. After a moment's pause, he immediately stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, Princess. Your Excellency, I'm sorry for not welcoming you from afar. The guests within the restaurant also rose and bowed. No need to be so formal, Zhao Jinsi said casually. Her gaze instantly fell on the calligraphy on the wall, and she hurried over. Her appearance was not dissimilar to that of Du Shaoling and the others who had arrived earlier. In fact, Zhao Jinsi had hurried over specifically after receiving news from Du Shaoling. As she gazed at the elegant calligraphy on the wall, along with the familiar poems, her eyes brightened, and a look of excitement crossed her face. She was absolutely certain this was the man she was looking for. She had thought she would never discover the origins of those poems. But just when she had given up hope, a miracle occurred. She was even more surprised to find that the literary master she had been searching for was actually the restaurant's owner, Wei Yi. She had never even heard of Wei Yi before, let alone met him. So, at this moment, she was filled with both anticipation and nervousness, even a faint blush tinging her fair cheeks. "Excuse me, is young Master Wei here?" Zhao Jinsi turned to Meng Shulian, who had been following her respectfully. Young Master Wei just returned to his study in the backyard with Master Du. "Does the princess wish to see him too?" Meng Shulian asked. She now understood that these people had come for Wei Yi's poems. She knew little about poetry and calligraphy, but she had previously appreciated the grandeur of Wei Yi's calligraphy and the elegance and passion of his verses. But she had never imagined it would cause such a stir. Not only had the literary master Du Shaoling come with his students to observe, but even the princess had come to admire them. This showed just how impressive Wei Yi's poems were. "Oh, could you take me to see young Master Wei?" Zhao Jinsi asked, slightly nervous. "Okay, no problem. I'll take you there." Meng Shulian nodded. In fact, she was also a little nervous around Zhao Jinsi. After all, both the other party's status and aura were truly extraordinary. Guo Pixiu, who had been entertaining guests and friends upstairs, also arrived downstairs with his guests. They had heard about the princess's arrival and had come downstairs to witness the excitement. After all, a princess of such noble status visiting a restaurant was a rare occurrence. Meng Shulian instructed Guo Pixiu to look after the restaurant while she, along with Zhao Jinsi and Lin Zuna, went to the courtyard behind the restaurant. Seeing three beauties, each equally beautiful yet each possessing their own unique charm, exit the restaurant, the previously quiet restaurant suddenly erupted in a frenzy of discussion. Many even rushed over to the calligraphy and paintings, pretending to examine them. "Oh my god, what's going on?" Guo Pixiu was also surprised. He couldn't help but glance at the calligraphy and paintings on the wall. Then he sighed. "Brother Wei is truly amazing." In Wei Yi's study, Du Shaoling excitedly recounted how he had the privilege of encountering Wei Yi's poems, and his deep admiration for Wei Yi's poetic talent and spirit. Hearing this, Wei Yi suddenly understood why Du Shaoling had suddenly arrived at the restaurant with a group of students, and why he had been so excited upon seeing him, and why he had spoken so passionately. It turned out he had already seen those poems, and had been searching for their author. This incident also seemed to clue Wei Yi in on the origins of those golden dots. Perhaps they were truly connected to the poems that had been circulated. When Du Shaoling inquired about Wei Yi's mental journey in creating these poems, Wei Yi, with a serious expression, told him a story he had prepared long ago to explain the origins of these poems and even his own literary works. After all, when things are unusual, there must be something fishy going on. For a young, unknown student like him to suddenly produce so many extraordinary poems would inevitably arouse suspicion and perhaps even be difficult to convince. Therefore, since this matter itself was unusual, it was indeed unusual. Why not let it become a complete myth? After all, this world is full of ghosts and gods, and there are many incredible yet real people and events. This includes the founding emperor of the Great Yan dynasty. So Wei Yi claimed that he failed the college entrance examination because he had contracted a strange illness. Others saw him as having caught a cold, bedridden, and even somewhat delirious. In reality, during that time, he felt as if his soul had left his body and traveled to a mysterious place, like a fairyland, yet also like the mortal world. He saw a white-robed immortal who loved drinking, swordplay, and even more so, writing poetry and painting. Later, after his illness gradually recovered, he would often dream of that immortal. The poems he wrote all originated from the immortal's mouth. He also emphasized that sometimes he felt that the person in his dream was himself, but also felt that it was not himself. It was a very contradictory and mysterious feeling. "Perhaps that is your past life," Du Shaoling said excitedly. Chapter 79, A Peerless Sword. First order request. Du Shaoling's eyes lit up at Wei Yi's narration. All his previous confusion and doubts seemed to vanish. No wonder Wei Yi, at such a young age, could produce so many astonishing works. Even the content and experiences of many of his poems were clearly inconsistent with his age and status. No wonder many of the place names and allusions in his poems were unfamiliar to him. It turned out these poems all came from his past life. Du Shaoling believed Wei Yi's words without a doubt. After all, if he had plagiarized the poems, what about the calligraphy and paintings? In his opinion, it would be difficult to achieve such superb and natural calligraphy without decades of accumulation. No one in the entire Great Yan dynasty could match him. Moreover, even though he was a scholar, he possessed extraordinary talent and attainments in sword forging. He achieved the title of 5th grade swordsmith at a young age. He now opened a restaurant and brewed the fine Lanling wine, said to be even better than Lansheng wine. He even composed a poem about it. These signs are no accident. On the contrary, his poems are closely related to wine and swords, almost inseparable. It's clear that Wei Yi's actions in this life are influenced by memories from his past life. His extraordinary talent and extraordinary achievements are all due to the valuable experience accumulated in his past life. In other words, the people he sees in his dreams are actually his past lives, his own memories. Furthermore, it's possible that in his past life, he was a person who had experienced the mundane world and achieved immortality. He even lived not in the Great Yan dynasty, but in another land unknown to him. In fact, the theory of past lives is not shocking or incredible. The founding emperor of the Great Yan dynasty awakened the memories of martial god in his past life. He rose to become a martial arts master, leading his family to prosperity, and becoming a renowned martial arts family. Through martial arts, he overthrew the previous dynasty, destroyed neighboring countries, unified multiple martial arts families, and established the present Great Yan dynasty. It also ushered in the most glorious and prosperous era of the Great Yan dynasty. Perhaps so. Wei Yi nodded solemnly, secretly admiring Du Shaoling's wit. With a little guidance, he delivered the desired result. Wow, so many cats. A girl's surprised voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. It was Lin Zuna, exclaiming at the sight of the cats in the yard. There were many abandoned cats in this city a while ago, and young Master Wei took pity on them, so he brought them back and adopted them. Meng Shulian explained with a smile. Zhao Jin's eyes lit up at Meng Shulian's words, and she looked at the cats with a gentle gaze. Her anticipation for meeting Wei Yi grew, but so did her nervousness. Young Master Wei is very kind. Lin Zuna exclaimed with a smile. Princess, please come this way. Meng Shulian led Zhao Jinsi and Lin Zuna to the door of Wei Yi's study. But before she could say anything, Wei Yi and Du Shaoling had already appeared at the door. The two of them also heard the conversation outside and guessed that it must be the princess coming. So they hurried to the door to greet her. Wei, meet the princess. Wei Yi bowed. However, after seeing Wei Yi, Zhao Jinsi felt as if his heart was squeezed hard. In a trance, it seemed as if the spring breeze was warm and the fragrance of flowers was wafting around. It was as if the sun was shrouding Wei Yi, emitting a soft and warm light. His jade-like and handsome face was perfectly integrated with the figure in his dream. The elegant temperament and graceful figure were exactly the same as in his dream. Mr. Wei is polite. After a moment of silence, Zhao Jinsi came back to his senses and immediately said with a polite smile. Lin Zuna, who was standing beside him, looked at Wei Yi with sparkling eyes. She then looked at Zhao Jinsi's expression again, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. As a woman herself, Meng Shulian naturally saw the admiration in Zhao Jinsi's eyes. After all, she had felt the same way when she first met Wei Yi. She wasn't a narrow-minded jealous woman. She could even understand Zhao Jinsi's thoughts and feelings. After all, Wei Yi was like a piece of exquisite jade. If she could be moved by him, then surely many others would be as well. Furthermore, Meng Shulian knew she was no match for Wei Yi. With Wei Yi's talent, he was bound to become a remarkable figure in the future. In terms of compatibility, she truly felt Zhao Jinsi was a better match. She would be content to have the honor of becoming Wei Yi's concubine. Princess, please come in. Wei Yi invited Zhao Jinsi into the study. Meng Shulian returned to her duties at the restaurant. Zhao Jinsi entered the study and looked around. The furnishings were simple. Aside from a decorative vase and stone carvings on the desk, the room was mostly filled with books, calligraphy, and the four treasures of the study. It was a return to simplicity, a testament to the owner's dedication to literature. Unlike those wealthy young men, whose studies were ostentatiously filled with books, calligraphy, and paintings, he usually focused on the precious jade and porcelain on the antique display cases. Those paintings and calligraphy were merely a way for them to flaunt their wealth. However, Xiao Jin's gaze quickly fell on the orchid beside the desk. On it lay 3 gleaming, imposing swords. It seemed he too was a sword lover. No wonder he frequently mentioned them in his poetry. Xiao Jin hadn't known Wei Yi was a swordsmith. After all, she had only recently heard of him. However, Lin Xuna's eyes lit up when she saw the swords on the orchid. She immediately approached the orchid and examined the sword at the top. Yishan, what a beautiful sword. Lin Xuna immediately recognized the extraordinary nature of the Yishan sword. She greatly admired swords, especially fine ones. So, upon seeing the extraordinary heavenly sword, she couldn't help but take it in her hands. Xuna, don't move, Xiao Jin shouted. But Lin Xuna had already grasped the sword. Hearing the resounding sword chant, her eyes brightened. But at that moment, she suddenly felt an inexplicable aura emanating from the sword. Like thunder and raging waves, it sent a chill through even a 6th rank warrior. Her heart raced, and her breathing became rapid. But the inexplicable aura was fleeting, like an illusion. When it faded, Lin Xuna's fair face flushed, whether from shock or excitement. A wonderful sword, truly a peerless sword. Lin Xuna stared at the heavenly sword in her hands with a burning gaze. It was the first time she had felt a sword come alive, imbued with such a soul-stirring aura. Xuna, put it back quickly. Don't be rude. Xiao Jin scolded again. No problem, Miss Lin seems to be a sword lover too, Wei Yi said with a smile. However, he had just seen the change in Lin Xuna's expression, and he must have also sensed the sword's power. My lord, this sword is extraordinary. Lin Xuna seemed not to hear Xiao Jin's words, and continued to study the sword in her hand. She immediately looked at Wei Yi and asked, Master Wei, where did you get this sword? Thanks to Curse for the reward of 500 starting coins. Thanks to the young man and girl for the reward of 100 starting coins. And thanks to everyone for the monthly tickets. Chapter 80 High five as an oath subscribe. I forged this sword myself, Wei Yi said with a smile. Upon hearing Wei Yi's words, Lin Xuna's eyes widened, her face filled with shock as she gazed at Wei Yi. Xiao Jin was equally astonished. After all, she had assumed Wei Yi simply loved swords, not that he could forge them. Your Highness and Miss Lin may not know, but young Master Wei is a 5th rank swordsmith, Du Shaoling introduced. He had also been surprised when his students had mentioned Wei Yi as a 5th rank swordsmith. Lin Xuna's mouth dropped open at Du Shaoling's words, as if she were reacquainting herself with Wei Yi. She hadn't expected the man standing before her to be a 5th rank swordsmith. Xiao Jin was equally astonished, her beautiful eyes gleaming. Beyond her amazement, her admiration for Wei Yi only deepened. She couldn't imagine how Wei Yi could manage so many talents simultaneously: poetry, painting, calligraphy, and swordsmithing. And each of these skills was so exceptional, so unmatched. Truly an exceptional person, capable of excelling in everything they do. Standing before Wei Yi, the ever-proud Xiao Jin couldn't help but feel humbled. She finally understood why Wei Yi's poems contained so many lines about swords. My god, you're actually a 5th rank swordsmith. You're truly amazing. Lin Xuna gazed at Wei Yi with admiration. She suddenly seemed to understand why the princess, upon seeing those poems, had been so captivated by the author, with such boundless admiration. Perhaps it was the same feeling she had felt when she had just seen the heavenly sword, feeling admiration for its creator. So, this was what it felt like to admire someone. From childhood to adulthood, Lin Xuna had never truly admired anyone. She had always been the envy and admiration of others for her exceptional talent. Young Master Wei, how did you forge this sword? Why does it give off such an extraordinary feeling? Lin Xuna asked Wei Yi, her gaze blazing. That's hard to explain in a few words. Anyway, this kind of sword is not easy to forge, or perhaps even something you only find once. Wei Yi said seriously. Can you forge a sword like this? I'll pay you whatever you want, Lin Xuna said excitedly. It's not about the money. Forging a sword like this requires a certain amount of luck. Here's how. If I ever have the chance to forge a sword like this again, I'll definitely keep it for you, Wei Yi said with a smile. Really? Then you must keep your word. Lin Zuna was delighted. Yes, of course. It's a deal. Okay, let's high five. Lin Zuna extended her slender delicate hand. Wei Yi smiled and extended his hand, high-fiving Lin Zuna as well. This is truly a peerless sword. Compared to yours, mine is truly. Looking at the heavenly sword, Lin Zuna felt her own sword no longer held much promise. In fact, the sword she wore at her waist was also a 5-bead quality sword. It was a gift from her father, crafted by a 5th rank swordsmith from the 10,000 Swords Pavilion. Zuna, alright, put it back, Xiao Jinsi said solemnly. Hearing Xiao Jinsi's words, Lin Zuna reluctantly placed the heavenly sword back on Lanqi, but her gaze lingered on it. Princess, Miss Lin, please take a seat. Wei Yi called over a maid to porty for Xiao Jinsi and Lin Zuna. Young Master Wei is truly talented. He's even a 5th rank swordsmith. Truly admirable, Xiao Jinsi said, a little uncomfortably. She didn't know why she felt nervous in Wei Yi's presence. Princess, you're too kind. I'm truly flattered that you visited my humble home today. I hope you'll forgive me if I haven't been able to entertain you well enough. Wei Yi also bowed and spoke politely. Seeing the awkwardness between Wei Yi and Xiao Jinsi, Du Shaoling smiled and said, the princess is a great fan of your poetry. She even composed a piece for your poem. When will the bright moon appear? Now, this song, Water Melody, has become a citywide sensation, sung by countless scholars and poets. I'm truly sorry. I was so moved by your poetry that day that I couldn't help myself and published your poem without your permission. I hope you will forgive me, Master Wei, Xiao Jinsi said with a smile. No problem, princess, don't mind. Oh, by the way, now that the owner of this purse has finally been found, it's time to return it to its rightful owner. Xiao Jinsi pulled the purse from her lapel. She had always carried it close to her, cherishing it so much that she feared losing it. So when Wei Yi took it, he could almost feel the faint warmth of her body and even smell the unique floral fragrance. This purse belongs to my younger sister. I'd like to thank the princess on her behalf. After a few more small talk, Xiao Jinsi slowly opened up. She discussed Wei Yi's poems, then some of the place names and allusions mentioned within them. There are some allusions I'm not very familiar with. Could young Master Wei explain them? Hearing the princess's confusion, Wei Yi repeated the story he'd told Du Shaoling. Xiao Jinsi and Lin Zuna were amazed by Wei Yi's story, but they also believed it. After all, Du Shaoling was there to help explain it. Everything seemed so logical, so believable. Could it be that young Master Wei was an immortal in his previous life? Lin Zuna blinked her bright eyes. Yes, that must be the case. No wonder the swords you forge are so extraordinary. Xiao Jinsi nodded repeatedly, looking at Wei Yi with even greater admiration and respect. Wei Yi's appearance and demeanor were like those of a banished immortal. His poems were even more otherworldly, imbued with an ethereal aura. Therefore, she believed Wei Yi, more than anyone else, that he was the reincarnation of an immortal. I wonder what year it is in the heavenly palaces tonight. I wish to ride the wind back, but I fear the jade buildings and jade palaces. Perhaps young Master Wei's previous life truly was from that heavenly palace, an immortal who rode the gentle breeze. Xiao Jinsi was thrilled. She had never imagined that the person she admired was truly an immortal, navigating the mundane world yet remaining detached from it. Her admiration for Wei Yi was truly overflowing with words. Wei Yi smiled but said nothing, having suddenly become so pretentious. Young Master Wei, I have a favor to ask. I wonder if you would grant me your permission? Xiao Jinsi suddenly said in a serious tone. Princess, please feel free to speak. I have a regret. I can only clearly read the first half of your poem Song of the Wine. The second half has always been a source of regret for me. I wonder if you would let me hear the complete Song of the Wine today. Xiao Jinsi looked at Wei Yi with anticipation. Of course, but this poem needs to be paired with delicious food and fine wine. Only by expressing the poetic sentiment through wine can the princess truly appreciate its artistic conception. I wonder if the princess would be willing to drink. Why don't we have a drink together and try our new wine, Lanling? Wei Yi said with a smile. He knew this was a great opportunity to promote his restaurant's specialty food and fine wine. If the princess and Du Shaoling both drank this Lanling wine, its value in the eyes of literati would surely soar. Lanling wine is like tulips, amber colored in a jade bowl. If the host can intoxicate the guest, they will forget where they are. With such beautiful verses, this Lanling wine must be as delicious as its name. I'm eager to try it. Du Shaoling immediately recited the poem, which he had seen earlier in the restaurant. Excellent. It's rare for you to have such elegance. We will naturally obey your command, Zhao Jinsi said with a smile. The Zhao family is a martial arts family. Their family tradition is bold and unrestrained, and they don't care about trivial matters. They don't have as many etiquette and rules as ordinary official families. It's not a big deal for women in the family to practice martial arts and drink, or even go into battle and kill enemies like men. Although Zhao Jinsi was influenced by her father and likes poetry and songs, pays attention to etiquette, and is gentle and elegant, but deep down, she is also a person who doesn't care about trivial matters. She doesn't mind drinking and chatting with men. When she attends literary gatherings, she will have a drink to liven up the atmosphere. What's more, one is her teacher and the other is someone she admires. Thanks to YZUI=QIANCHOU for awarding 500 starting coins. Thanks to the two book friends Very Reasonable is Working and Mujiangai for awarding 100 starting coins each. Thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 81 Completely Depressed. In the private room in the southwest corner of the Wanjia restaurant, watching the constant stream of customers at Xiangman Lao's entrance, even after lunchtime, the number of customers continued to increase. Wang Yinchang and the restaurant owners were filled with jealousy, but they also knew that the news of the princess's visit to Xiangman Lao had spread, attracting so many guests to explore. After all, high-ranking officials were always the subject of public discussion. And this was especially true of Zhao Jinsi, whose beauty and talent were unrivaled. If one were to coin the term the most famous beauty in Kingsao City, it certainly wouldn't be the most popular prostitutes in the brothels. It would be Zhao Jinsi, of noble status, talent, and beauty. In the eyes of many, Zhao Jinsi was as bright as the moon in the sky. Add to that the martial arts prodigy Lin Zuna and the literary master Du Shaoling. These individuals were all renowned figures. Their combined fame was enough to capture the attention of the entire city. But they couldn't fathom how Xiangman Lao had managed to attract these people. After all, this was someone you couldn't even afford to invite. Just then, Wanzai walked in, carrying 2 small jars of wine. Did you find out? Everyone immediately looked at Wanzai, eagerly asking. Yes, we did. Xiangman Lao has decorated the restaurant with numerous poems, calligraphy, and paintings. It's those poems and paintings that attracted the princess and the people from King Feng Academy, Wanzai said. He then placed the 2 small jars of wine on the table. Could it be the poem about Lanling wine? Those 2 lines do sound quite good, but they wouldn't alarm Master Du and the princess, would they? Yes, it's not just that one poem. It's said that Wei Yi wrote many poems, all of them excellent. Furthermore, Wei Yi's skills in calligraphy and painting are remarkable. Even Master Du is said to have praised him. Wanzai said solemnly. Upon hearing Wanzai's words, the shopkeepers, including Wang Yinchang, fell silent. They really can't compare. You're talking about comparing drinks and dishes, that's still within their scope. But poetry, calligraphy, and painting, that's not their forte. Literary culture is all the rage in town right now. We'll hang some famous paintings and calligraphy in the restaurant later to show off our taste. That's right. I don't believe Wei Yi's paintings can rival those masterpieces. A restaurant's core focus is naturally on food and drink. Poetry, calligraphy, and paintings might be a welcome gimmick for a few days, but in the long run, it's the food and drinks that matter. Several shopkeepers chatted, their mouths full of jealousy. By the way, this jar is Lansheng wine, and this one is Lanling wine. I heard their food is delicious too. I was thinking of ordering more to go and try. But Xiangman Lao can't take it today, it's dine-in only. So for now, we've only ordered drinks. Shopkeepers, please try this Lanling wine and see how it goes, Wanzai added. His words were like a bucket of cold water pouring down on the shopkeepers. It suddenly dawned on them. Besides calligraphy and paintings, the food and wine were also excellent. The Lansheng wine was delicious, needless to say. As for the food, Xiangmen Lao had been around for so many years, so even if it wasn't good, it couldn't be that bad. However, when they unsealed the Lanling wine, the overwhelming aroma weighed on their nerves. The aroma alone gave them a bad feeling. After each of them tasted the Lanling wine, they slumped back in their chairs, completely dejected. Lansheng wine alone was enough to threaten the quality of their respective wineries. Now, the taste of this Lanling wine far surpassed Lansheng wine, to a point where they couldn't even compare. They couldn't help but want to praise it and drink more. But the more they did, the more depressed they became. It was like a cup of poisoned wine before their eyes. They knew it would kill them, yet they were consumed with greed, eager to gulp it down. But after their depression subsided, some of the shopkeepers seemed to realize something. If the one family fails to bring down Xiangmen Lao this time, then the future of the restaurant industry will likely be dominated by the Meng family. No, it should be Wei Yi. Perhaps they should consider their own options. Should they choose to perish alongside the one family? Or should they choose a new master? Clearly, the latter is wiser. Even if they have to compromise and linger on, it's better than being buried with the one family. The atmosphere in the private room was incredibly oppressive. Everyone's eyes were on Wang Yunchang, awaiting his decision. He too was at a loss, his face filled with worry. Let's call it a day. Let's all go. Let me be alone, Wang Yunchang said. He was truly overwhelmed. Xiangmen Lao was a completely different place today. The enemy had become incredibly powerful, and without the protection of the county magistrate, his influence was greatly reduced. He had no idea what to do next. He was afraid he would have to use the crown prince's connections. In the Wei family's dining hall, Wei Yi, Du Shaoling, Zhao Jinsi, and Lin Zuna each sat at a separate table, eating their meals separately. This practice was standard etiquette for entertaining guests in the Yan dynasty's wealthy and powerful families. Zhao Jinsi, after all, was of high status, and their relationship wasn't such that they could dine at the same table. Therefore, Wei Yi, in accordance with etiquette, naturally ate separately from the others. The dishes they ate were delivered by the restaurant. Zhao Jinsi, Du Shaoling, and the others were pleasantly surprised by the food. They had tasted many delicacies, especially Zhao Jinsi. Even the dishes prepared by the city's most renowned chefs pale in comparison to those at Xiangmen Lao. Little did they know that these dishes were enriched with Wei Yi's secret sauces, imbuing the food with a whole new spirit. However, the one who enjoyed the most delicious meal was undoubtedly Lin Zuna. True to her martial arts background, this woman had an astonishing appetite, and she was completely unreserved, completely disregarding her appearance when she ate. All kinds of food were stuffed into the little mouth. But the way she ate was not ugly, her cheeks were bulging, like a chipmunk stuffed with nuts, which was quite cute. And watching her eat always gave people an inexplicable sense of enjoyment and satisfaction. It felt like my appetite would at least double if I ate with her every day. If she were placed on the Blue Star in her previous life, she would definitely become a very popular foodie anchor. Compared to Lin Zuna, who was passionate about food, Du Shaoling was obsessed with the Lanling wine. He couldn't put this wine down, and praised it endlessly. For a while, he even drank a lot. After 3 rounds of wine, when the mood was high, Wei Yi stood up, raised his glass, and recited the poem drinking song with the help of the wine. Have you not seen the waters of the sand river come from the sky, rushing to the sea and never returning? Have you not seen the white hair in the mirror of the hall, which was black in the morning, and turned to snow in the evening? Wei Yi also replaced the names of people, places, and allusions in Song of the Wine, to make them more appropriate to the scene and more relatable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, Famous in the City, 3rd update. Throughout history, sages and wise men have all been lonely, only drinkers have left their names. The king of Qin once feasted at the Jade Palace, drinking 10,000 dao of wine and enjoying himself. Why does the host say he has little money? He must buy some wine for you. 5 colored horses, furs worth thousands of gold. I'll call my servant to go out and exchange them for fine wine so that we can drown our eternal sorrows together. Li Bei is Wei Yi's favorite poet. In his previous life, he had watched many videos and read articles about his life. Among his many poems, Wei Yi's favorite, the one that best captures Li Bei's fate and personality, is Song of the Wine. So, as he recited this poem, his mind unconsciously conjured up images of Li Bei's life. He thought of his high spirits, his frustrations, his romance, his optimism, his helplessness, his struggles, his heroism, his unrestrained spirit. He also reflected on his life's regrets and the sorrows of his time. These emotions seemed to resonate across time and space, making Wei Yi feel as if he had become Li Bei himself. Politically marginalized, he was granted a gift of gold and released by the emperor. With talent yet to be fulfilled, he could only express his grievances and lofty ambitions through wine and poetry. This reminded Wei Yi of his past life. He loved life, had dreams, and pursued aspirations. He treated everyone with kindness and faced all the injustices of fate with optimism. Yet, he ultimately succumbed to cancer. Despite regrets, he never complained. Perhaps it was his optimism that forged a new life. He had risen from humble beginnings and now truly had recovered. Embracing this emotional resonance, Wei Yi recited the poem with impassioned passion, heartfelt emotion, and powerful voice. It moved him and those at the table. Du Shaoling gripped his wine glass, his withered hands trembling. He didn't know whether it was the excitement of finally hearing the full text, or perhaps it was the sadness that resonated with him. Tears welled up in his slightly cloudy eyes. There was also a surge of injustice in his heart, a surge of heroism and passion. Zhao Jin's cheeks flushed, and his expression was excited. He stared at Wei Yi's figure with burning eyes, lost in thought. His heart had long been immersed in Wei Yi's unrestrained figure, and intoxicated by the heroic spirit of his poetry. Even Lin Zuna was deeply moved. With a chicken leg in her mouth, her eyes were fixed on Wei Yi, unable to extricate herself. In Zhao Hanking's mansion, the news that the princess had gone to Xiangmenlao naturally reached Zhao Hanking's ears. After all, every move of his family was something he paid close attention to. The princess and Master Du are still at the Wei family and have not returned yet, a man in plain clothes said with a fist. In other words, the poem When Will the Bright Moon Rise was also written by Wei Yi. Zhao Hanking put down the teacup in his hand, his face full of surprise. Indeed, these are poems collected and copied from the restaurant by some scholars. Your Highness, please have a look. The plainclothed man produced some papers and presented them to Zhao Hanking. Zhao Hanking carefully examined the poems, his expression of surprise deepening. They are indeed excellent poems, and their restaurant has a wide variety of dishes, and the taste is unparalleled. It's said that diners all rave about it, calling it the best in the city. Especially the Lanling wine, known as nectar and jade dew, the supreme delicacy. The plainclothed man continued. Lanling wine is like tulips, amber colored in jade bowls. Zhao Hanking had also come across a poem about Lanling wine, and his interest was piqued. He had tasted Lansheng wine before, and it was indeed very delicious. He was delighted to give it to his grandfather. He wondered what else this Lanling wine would be like. As he pondered this, the housekeeper approached, bowing. Your Highness, young Master Guo requests an audience. Let him in. Zhao Hanking put away his poems and waved his hand, dismissing the plain-clothed man. Shortly after, Guo Pixiu arrived with his 4 attendants. Each of them carried food boxes or jars of wine. Your Highness, the restaurant just opened today, and I've been incredibly busy. I just found time to come and bring you some food and wine. Please enjoy. Guo Pixiu said with a beaming smile. Oh, then I'm in for a real treat today. Zhao Hanking said with a smile. He had guessed that Guo Pixiu was bringing him some wine. He just wanted to taste the delicious Lanling wine and see just how good it was. The news of Princess Zhao Jinsi and the literary master Du Shaoling's visit to Xiangmenlao spread like wildfire, and so did the poems displayed in the restaurant. Upon hearing the news, many of the city's scholars and poets flocked to Xiangmenlao to admire the calligraphy and stunning poetry. Xiangmenlao was bustling with activity, and even after dinner time, the restaurant remained packed. Furthermore, Xiangmen Lao's drinks and food captivated the diners. Through word of mouth, their reputation quickly grew. Even before dinner time, every table at Xiangmen Lao was already packed. Later, the restaurant was so packed that many customers had to wait outside just to sample Xiangmen Lao's dishes and the fine Lanling wine. Business was so booming that other restaurants in the city seemed to have lost more than half their usual number of customers. Although many restaurants offered promotions like discounts and free drinks to attract customers, the results were limited. It seemed as if diners would rather wait in the cold than visit their restaurants. Zhao Jinsi and Du Shaoling stayed at the Wei Yi residence until evening, reluctantly leaving, still enjoying the feast. Before leaving, Wei Yi personally crafted 2 scrolls of the poem Song of the Wine and gave them to Du Shaoling and Zhao Jinsi, respectively. He also sent a jar of Lanling wine to Du Shaoling. As a token of gratitude, Du Shaoling also wrote a calligraphy piece for Wei Yi, a reference to one of his famous poems. Zhao Jinsi, in turn, promised to host a banquet at the palace to honor Wei Yi. That evening, Zhao Jinsi also sent Wei Yi a set of priceless stationery. As night fell, the restaurant's lanterns, row upon row, illuminated the surroundings. The streets had thinned, but the restaurant was still bustling with activity. The patrons, intoxicated by the wine, were reluctant to leave. The literati, lost in the poetry, lost track of time. And the story of Xiangmen Lao's day's events continued to circulate. Those poems, passed down through the lips of scholars and literati, began to circulate in the brothels. Throughout the day, Wei Yi harvested countless golden rays of light. Now, the great tree within his sea of consciousness was covered in golden leaves. Wei Yi had pinpointed the source of these golden rays. He suspected that the more people knew his poems, the more golden rays would appear. Wei Yi had spent the entire night honing his calligraphy skills, finally reaching the final 2% of proficiency. His calligraphy skills had finally advanced again. This sparked Wei Yi's anticipation. The last upgrade had granted him the magical power of penetrating into the wood 3 points deep. He wondered what kind of magical power he would gain this time. Chapter 83, Founding a Sect. Do not skip this chapter. This chapter discusses the settings after the Forest of Ink upgrades. Don't skip it, or you might not understand what's coming next. Late at midnight, Wei Yi took a hot bath and returned to bed, preparing to upgrade his writing skill. This upgrade would bring his writing skill to level 5. It was already the highest level of all his skills. Next up was his cooking skill, currently at level 4, only 12% away from reaching the next level. Then there were blacksmithing, fitness, brewing, and taming, all at level 3. Brewing was also on the verge of reaching the next level, and it was estimated to be within 2 or 3 days. As for carving and painting, they were still at level 2. Due to limited time, Wei Yi had allocated very little time to these 2 skills. He only occasionally gained proficiency by carving food or carving decorative items like scabbards and hilts. As for painting, it was the paintings Wei Yi had recently created for the restaurant that had significantly boosted his proficiency. Currently, he was only 26% away from reaching the next level. Alas, my lifespan is still only 50. I still need to work harder. Wei Yi sighed to himself as he looked at the system panel. When his fitness skill reached level 3, his lifespan increased significantly. Combined with nourishing the body with the right kind of nourishment and various dietary supplements, his lifespan shot up from 43 to 50. Even so, it was still a bit short. While it was significantly longer than his previous life, every man wanted a longer lifespan. However, Wei Yi wasn't worried. After all, as long as he continued to improve his fitness and cooking skills, 50 was just a starting point. The upper limit could be unlimited. Putting his thoughts aside, Wei Yi closed his eyes. With a thought, his writing skill began to upgrade. A familiar feeling washed over him. Wei Yi realized his consciousness had been drawn into his sea of consciousness. There, a towering tree covered in golden leaves and a newly formed sapling grew. This was the forest of writing and ink within his sea of consciousness. But at that moment, the light from those golden leaves suddenly flared up. Finally, a small sun condensed in the sky, emitting a golden glow. Illuminated by that golden light, he could clearly sense that the tree, condensed from the energy of the brush and ink, had undergone a subtle transformation. Furthermore, Wei Yi discovered he could see the roots of the two trees. One root from the smaller tree connected to the larger one. The larger tree's roots were countless, densely packed together, and at the end of each root seemed to be a text. As Wei Yi examined them closely, the text gradually became clearer. He could not help but realize that it was all the words he had ever written. The densely packed text intertwined into countless tiny roots, which in turn converged into larger roots, ultimately merging into the trunk of the tree. But at that moment, the countless words and tiny roots rapidly coalesced, interweaving with one another. Slowly, they coalesced into a multiplicity of figures. The two figures in the foreground, whose faces could be clearly seen, were Du Shaoling and Zhao Jinsi. Behind them, many others, blurry and barely visible, were outlines. What's going on? Wei Yi wondered, wondering why he could see Zhao Jinsi and Du Shaoling. And who were those blurry, barely outlined figures? Soon, he felt countless pieces of information flooding into his mind, and his consciousness began to blur. Finally, he entered a state of utter mystery, seemingly both awake and asleep. An unknown amount of time passed before Wei Yi regained consciousness. Countless pieces of information became clearer, and his eyes grew deeper and brighter. A smile unconsciously curled up at the corners of his mouth, and a look of excitement gradually appeared on his face. The first ability he gained with this upgrade was called faster writing. Simply put, it was a skill that increased his hand speed. In a single breath, he could write hundreds or even thousands of words. Wei Yi felt that with that kind of hand speed, he could easily shoot planes, steal things, or even perform magic tricks. However, with this faster writing, he could significantly improve his proficiency and the efficiency of his brush and ink energy. Furthermore, he had also gained a new magical power, brilliant writing. This was an offensive-oriented magical power. Unlike 3-point penetration into wood, which draws upon the power of heaven to imbue objects with properties and rules, this wonderful brush stroke directly transforms the energy of the brush and ink within one's body into an energy similar to a warrior's blood energy or a cultivator's true ki, used to attack. Using the wonderful brush stroke, one's brush strokes become more than just words, but a sword energy capable of killing. Of course, if this wonderful brushstroke is combined with the artistic conception of poetry, it can be condensed and unleashed to unleash even greater power. This is similar to the difference between a cultivator simply releasing true ki to attack, and using it to power spells. Furthermore, the power of a poem depends not only on its inherent poetic power, but also on its condensed resonant power. This resonant power is the degree to which the poem is known and recognized by the world. The more people resonate with and acknowledge it, the greater the condensed willpower, and the greater the power it can unleash. This is similar to the golden light Wei Yi obtained. Therefore, if a poem is to become a powerful spell, it needs to be known by more people, resonating with them emotionally. So, in the future, I could fund the establishment of more academies, recruit students, and have them study my poems. I could even have teachers teach them to appreciate the poetic meaning of the poems, and help them resonate with them. Wouldn't that mean I could manually enhance the power of a poem? Wei Yi thought to himself, and this opened up his mind. Right now, King Feng Academy is his best goal. I could fund its expansion, provide free education, and recruit students for training. Perhaps in the future, I could establish a Confucian or Taoist sect in this world. Wei Yi had this idea because of another powerful ability he had gained after this upgrade. This was also why he had seen the strange changes in the forest of brush and ink in his sea of consciousness, and why he had seen Du Shaoling, Zhao Jinsi, and those blurry figures. Because of this upgrade, the forest of brush and ink had also been upgraded. In the future, besides constantly writing, painting can also increase brush and ink energy. Of course, there's an even more powerful way, hiring someone to ghostwrite, or taking on a student. Simply put, this means sharing your forest of brush and ink with your student. But as a senior administrator, the brush and ink energy accumulated by your students through their writing and painting will be contributed to the forest. They can also use the brush and ink energy, but how and how much they use is their own control. Furthermore, not everyone can share the forest of brush and ink. First, they must have a certain level of literary literacy. Second, they must have a strong emotional resonance and deep understanding of the poems they've written, perhaps even revere them as truth and faith. Only then can they connect with the forest of brush and ink within themselves. For example, Xiao Jinsi and Du Shaoling. After upgrading, Wei Yi can see that Du Shaoling is brimming with brush and ink energy, as vast as mountains and seas. This is the brush and ink energy he's accumulated over decades. If he connects it to his own forest of brush and ink, he'll be able to connect with it. It is estimated that a forest can be condensed in an instant. When he writes and paints in the future and cultivates the spirit of brush and ink, he will also condense the forest of brush and ink. And if he wants to use the spirit of brush and ink, he must use it within the scope of the authority he has given him. Therefore, in the future, he can use this forest of ink to connect all his devout students. Let them write and paint with him. Contribute the spirit of brush and ink, and condense the forest of brush and ink. It is like gaining the power of faith. With the joint efforts of thousands of students, his forest of brush and ink will soon become a forest of brush and ink, and a mountain of books and a sea of learning. Thank you to the 2018 Digital Book Friends for awarding 500 starting coins. Thank you to the 2020 Digital Book Friends for awarding 100 starting coins. And thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 84 The Prince Takes Action, Seeking Monthly Tickets. Of course, faster writing and brilliant writing can complement each other. After all, when using brilliant writing, hand speed determines the speed of one's spell. With faster writing, he could compose poems in an instant, unleashing its power. Next, I'll cultivate King Feng Academy into my own power. Wei Yi had an idea. He sat up in bed and glanced outside. It was still pitch black. A dozen cats lay dozing beside the bed. His proficiency in animal training was steadily increasing. The remaining cats patrolled the corners of the Wei Yi residence. These days, it's not just the guards who keep watch at night. The cats too. While they lack the powerful offensive power to kill enemies, they can serve as patrol warnings, better spotting danger and issuing warnings. This is a way to prevent trouble before it happens. After all, those with ulterior motives would never imagine a cat could be their spy, let alone go out of their way to guard against them. And when it comes to hiding, cats are naturally gifted masters. Wei Yi wasn't in a rush to bring Du Shaoling and Xiao Jinsi into the world of calligraphy. After all, he needed to find the right opportunity, the right reason, to bestow upon them this great mission. After getting out of bed, Wei Yi lit a candle. His movement woke nearly all the cats in the room. Some looked up at him and went back to sleep. Others watched him as he walked to the side to light a candle. Finally, he came to the desk and picked up a brush. Wei Yi first tested the Fen Biji Shu skill. Sure enough, his hand speed was astonishing. In a single breath, an article was written, like a printer. His brush and ink energy and proficiency increased dramatically. This is really useful, Wei Yi thought to himself. With this ability, his mastery and brushwork would improve even faster in the future. After testing Fen Biji Shu, Wei Yi took the brush and tried Mao Bi Sheng Hui. At the same time, a faint glow emanated from the brush, and the ink energy converged at the tip. Rays of light burst forth, the very void seeming to tremble slightly. It even stirred the surrounding air, transforming into a fierce gust of wind. This scene caused all the cats in the room to stare fearfully at the brush in Wei Yi's hand. They retreated to corners in fear, some even escaping through the cat holes. But Wei Yi didn't fully unleash his magical brush, stopping just enough. After all, he didn't want to cause too much noise. For the time being, he needed to conceal this ability and his trump card. Now I have another trump card to protect myself, Wei Yi thought to himself. His fitness skills had given him strength comparable to that of a 9th grade warrior. Combined with his brute force hammering technique, his own strength, and his unwavering butchering skills, he expected an ordinary 9th grade warrior to be no match for him. Adding the heavenly sword, he could easily withstand an 8th grade warrior. Now, with this magical power, Wei Yi felt he could definitely kill an 8th grade warrior. He could even hold his own against a 7th grade warrior. Even with the help of advanced planning, even a 7th rank warrior could be slain. Furthermore, as his brush and ink energy continued to grow, along with his own poetic prowess, perhaps one day, with his brilliant brush strokes alone, he could slay a 6th rank warrior, or even higher. However, Wei Yi knew that unless absolutely necessary, he wouldn't exert his full strength or risk his life. He wouldn't risk someone he could let others deal with. He wouldn't kill someone he could deal with in secret. After testing his newly acquired magical powers, Wei Yi put down his brush and began his daily morning exercises. The reputation of Xiangmen Lao's cuisine and drinks, fueled by the news of Princess Zhao Jinxi and Du Shaoling's visit to Xiangmen Lao, quickly spread throughout the city. Various versions of the story circulated, each one boasting a different, more bizarre twist. Some said that drinking Xiangmen Lao's wine had inspired Du Shaoling to compose a series of stunning poems, which he presented to Xiangmen Lao. Some say the princess gifted Xiangmen Lao her collection of famous calligraphy and paintings just to enjoy its cuisine. Others say it was a joint venture between the princess and Du Shaoling. Regardless of the rumors, Xiangmen Lao became a citywide sensation. It became a household name overnight. The poems and verses from the restaurant also spread rapidly among scholars. Du Shaoling even compiled a volume of them and included them in his collection of classics. He even began using them as teaching materials. For the next few days, Xiangmen Lao was packed almost daily, with long lines forming outside. From morning till night, every seat was filled. This directly led to a noticeable decline in business at other restaurants. Only a few people in the city could afford to dine at restaurants, and now they were all flocking to Xiangmen Lao. They ate there 4 days on end, never tiring of their meals. Furthermore, sales of Lansheng wine from the 2 wine shops Wei Yi had purchased also soared. As a result, within a few days, the one family's liquor sales plummeted, reaching less than 40% of their original daily sales. This was due to their control over the vast majority of the city's wine shops, restaurants, brothels, and other liquor sales venues. Otherwise, the sales would probably be less than 10%. So, Wang Yanchang was completely restless. That morning, Wang Yanchang and Wan Zai took the initiative to visit Zhao Hanking's residence, hoping to ask him for help. Prince, if this continues, our liquor store's market may be completely taken away by Lansheng liquor and Lanling fine liquor. This will not only affect our one family's interests, but also yours. We can't let them do this any longer. You are of noble status and have extensive connections. We can only rely on you for this matter. Wang Yanchang said excitedly. He was now truly panicked. His opponent was too powerful this time. It had caused such a sensation in the city that he didn't even dare to use any underhanded tactics. He knew that if he didn't do it, he would be digging his own grave. Listening to Wang Yanchang's words, Zhao Hanking remained calm, nodding slightly. I understand this matter. I'll personally discuss it with Guo Pixio and Wei Yi. Be patient, and I'll let you know when there's a result. Thank you, Your Highness. Upon completion, my one family is willing to give you another 10% of our business shares. Wang Yanchang bowed. Very well. I'll visit Xiangmen Lao later. Zhao Hanking said with a faint smile. Alright, then, my father and I won't disturb Your Highness. Wang Yanchang and Wan Zai took their leave. But for some reason, Wang Yanchang still felt uneasy. But thinking carefully, since the prince had already come forward, Guo Pixio and Wei Yi must have known they needed to restrain themselves. After Wang Yanchang left, Zhao Hanking pondered for a moment, then ordered the butler to prepare the carriage and headed to Xiangmen Lao. Before leaving, he even took 2,000 taels of silver notes and a box of tribute tea. The last day for double monthly tickets. Please give me some monthly tickets. Thank you to Digital Book Friend 2023 for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 85. If you can't beat them, join them. In the restaurant's accounting office, Wei Yi was discussing the expansion of the distillery with Meng Shulian and Guo Pixio. After all, with the current sales of Lansheng and Lanling wines, the distillery's production capacity was barely keeping up. Furthermore, Wei Yi planned to further optimize the brewing process for Lansheng and Lanling wines, further enhancing their quality and flavor. He also planned to introduce Lanling wines with different flavor profiles. Baijiu is generally categorized into strong aroma, sauce aroma, light aroma, phoenix aroma, rice aroma, sesame aroma, and rich aroma styles. These flavors would cater to the tastes of various drinkers and provide a richer, more comprehensive experience. Yesterday, Wei Yi's winner making skill had reached the 4th level. This granted him even more advanced brewing skills and a comprehensive range of winner-making methods. He could now brew every kind of liquor, from baijiu to wine, rum, brandy, and more, using the most advanced and sophisticated methods. Wei Yi has mastered the entire brewing process, including the production of different koji's, various fermentation methods, distillation techniques, aromatherapy, and blending. Through these techniques, he can elevate the flavors of Lansheng and Lanling wines to several new levels. Furthermore, Wei Yi has mastered a highly sophisticated and diverse method for producing medicinal liquors. These can be used for a variety of purposes, such as treating external injuries, bruises, internal injuries, nourishing yin and yang, replenishing blood, qi, and even for short-term strength boosting. Wei Yi envisions opening a herbal medicine shop, specializing in medicinal liquors for Jianghu practitioners and martial artists. These would undoubtedly become essential remedies for martial artists and cultivators, whether for physical fitness, robbery, or travel. Of course, with his advancement to the 4th level, Wei Yi not only gained various brewing skills, but also acquired a unique martial art, Drunken Fist. This Drunken Fist is similar to the martial arts techniques Wei Yi encountered in his previous life. It's a martial art that uses a stimulation of alcohol to unleash one's potential, yet maintains a sense of intoxication. It possesses unique body movements and boxing techniques. Okay, I'll go find another brewery and buy it, Guo Pixiu said with a smile upon hearing Wei Yi's words. Alright, I'll also give you a shopping list later. Go and procure the necessary grains, Wei Yi said. No problem. Besides expanding the brewery and increasing the staff, Wei Yi also planned to upgrade the brewery's equipment using his ingenious technique. This would shorten the fermentation cycle and storage time, thereby increasing production. Just then, a servant's voice rang from outside the door. Boss, a distinguished guest wishes to see you. Yes, alright. Meng Shulian replied. Alright, that's it for now. Wei Yi led Meng Shulian and Guo Pixiu out of the accounting office. Upon entering the hall, Guo Pixiu spotted Zhao Hanqing and ran over with a look of surprise. Prince, welcome. I'm sorry for not welcoming you. Guo Pixiu beamed, pleasantly surprised. No need to be so polite, young Master Guo. I have something I'd like to discuss with you and young Master Wei, Zhao Hanqing said with a smile, his eyes flickering to Wei Yi. He then bowed. Wei Yi immediately returned the greeting and approached, glancing at the swordsman behind Zhao Hanqing. He exuded the aura of master. Prince, please go to the private room upstairs, Guo Pixiu said quickly. It's too noisy here. Let's go somewhere quieter, Zhao Hanqing said. How about my study? Wei Yi said with a smile. Let me introduce you. This is the prince of the Jinggan Palace. Guo Pixiu introduced him quickly. Greetings, Prince. Wei Yi, curious as to why the prince wanted to see him and Guo Pixiu, invited Zhao Hanqing to his study. The swordsman Zhao Hanqing had brought with him remained outside the study. The three of them took their seats. Just as Wei Yi was about to ask the maid to make tea, Zhao Hanqing stopped him. He then handed Wei Yi an exquisite box. Young Master Wei, this is the tribute tea I brought. Please try it, Your Highness. You are too polite. Wei, have done me no good, Wei Yi said politely. Zhao Hanqing smiled faintly, saying nothing, simply handing the tribute tea to the maid. I've always heard that young Master Wei is incredibly talented, a 5th rank swordsmith and a gifted poet. I've also heard young Master Guo praise you so often before, and seeing you today, I can see you're truly worthy of the reputation. Zhao Hanqing began a round of business flattery. Wei Yi, naturally, wasn't about to be outdone, and while being humble, he also flattered Zhao Hanqing. Guo Pixiu, standing beside him, echoed the compliments. After some praise, Zhao Hanqing finally got to the point. The Lanling wine that young Master Guo sent to your restaurant the other day was truly delicious. Even I, who don't usually enjoy drinking, couldn't resist a few extra glasses, Zhao Hanqing said with a smile, his manner quite refined. I'm flattered by your favor, Your Highness. Wei Yi continued his politeness. However, there's one thing you may not be very clear about, and indeed, not many people know about it, not even young Master Guo. Zhao Hanqing's tone suddenly changed. Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu exchanged a glance, each looking at Zhao Hanking with some surprise. However, Wei Yi immediately had a suspicion, remembering what Wanzai had said at the winery entrance. There was someone behind the city's wine shops that they couldn't afford to offend. Could this person be Zhao Hanking? In fact, I own half of the Wan family's wine shop and restaurant. Zhao Hanking's words made Guo Pixiu's face change. Although Wei Yi's expression remained calm, his brows furrowed slightly. Sir, that Wan family is talking about. Guo Pixiu looked at Zhao Hanking gravely. The Wan family originally begged me to come here, to find a way to deal with you. After all, you've become a serious threat to their interests. However, I invested in the Wan family's business for one sole purpose, to make money. Zhao Hanking's face remained warm and friendly. He continued, I don't have a deep friendship with the Wan family, and I don't want to stand up for them. Besides, it's clear that your wine is superior in quality, and will undoubtedly replace Wanhan wine, and become a city favorite. So, I've come here today for only one reason, to join you. Together, we can clear all obstacles and completely monopolize the restaurants and liquor stores throughout Kingsao City, even expanding to other towns. Hearing this, Guo Pixiu's previously solemn expression brightened with a smile, a look of delight and delight. Wei Yi, though expressionless, also smiled. I'll have the Wan family give up some of their breweries, wine shops, restaurants, and other businesses in exchange for my merchants, to help you expand rapidly. I can even have Wan Yinchang directly give you the title of head of the guild and the title of chief executive, Zhao Hanking said sternly. Hearing this, Wei Yi smiled. It seemed Zhao Hanking was indeed a smart man, knowing the lesson of joining forces when you can't beat them. And as he said, he was a true businessman or investor. He naturally didn't care about the grudges between your families. He only cared about whose products were superior, had the most promising prospects, and could help him make more money. Wei Yi had no objection to joining forces with Zhao Hanking. He was even willing to cooperate with him. After all, as Zhao Hanking had said, joining forces would allow them to expand and dominate the market the fastest. It would also save them a lot of trouble, deterring those small fry from the Wan family. This was a win-win partnership. And after a certain point, money is just a number. Without sufficient strength and influence, too much money can become a disaster. With Zhao Hanking on board, it would be an added layer of security. Thanks to Digital Book Friend 151 for the 100 Kidian coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 86 Investment Academy. Faced with Zhao Hanking's sincerity, Wei Yi naturally accepted his joining with pleasure. After leaving the Wei family, Zhao Hanking returned to the mansion and arranged for someone to call Wan Yinchang. Not long after, Wan Yinchang brought Wanzai to the mansion. Wan Yinchang had naturally heard the news that Zhao Hanking had gone to Xiangmen Lao. So Wan Yinchang thought that Zhao Hanking was going to tell them good news. However, he didn't expect to hear a bolt from the blue. Prince, did I hear correctly? Wan Yinchang asked with a grim expression. You heard correctly. I will invest in the Wei family's business and cooperate with them in the future. Zhao Hanking said lightly. So, you should understand what this means. Don't have any more crooked ideas. It's best not to use those tricks you used on the Meng family before. Otherwise I will have no choice but to drive your Wan family out of Kingsao City. Zhao Hanking said expressionlessly. Also, please give up your positions as head of the guild and general manager. Upon hearing Zhao Hanking's words, Wan Yinchang's face paled. His expression was truly awful, truly awful. Wanzai, standing beside him, was also stunned. They had never expected Zhao Hanking to abandon them and choose to partner with Wei Yi and his men. But upon reflection, it made perfect sense. Wan Yinchang had even harbored some concerns, but he'd simply been clinging to a glimmer of hope, unwilling to believe. This was why he'd always wanted the Lansheng wine recipe. Sure enough, this hidden danger had finally become a major problem. Now, with the added bonus of Lanling wine, a wise man like the Crown Prince would surely see the situation clearly. Had he been in their place, free of personal grudges, he would have made the same choice. It was over. The Wan family was completely defeated this time. A crushing defeat. Wan Yinchang slumped back in his chair, speechless for a long time. He dared not think about the future, because there wasn't one. and Zhao Hanking laid out his thoughts. He asked the one family to give up half of their wine shops, restaurants and other businesses to offset his business shares and transfer them to the Wei family. He also formally gave up the positions of head of the branch and head of the general branch to Wei Yi. King Feng Academy. After Wei Yi sent Zhao Hanking away, he was invited to King Feng Academy. Yesterday evening, Du Shaoling sent students to the Wei family to invite him to the academy. It just so happened that Wei Yi was also planning to talk to Du Shaoling about expanding the academy, recruiting more students, and building a private school. He had already made up his mind to build King Feng Academy into his own Confucian and Taoist school in the future. However, this matter cannot be rushed. It must be done step by step. After Wei Yi arrived at King Feng Academy, the students of the academy welcomed him. They all respected Wei Yi very much. After all, they had read Wei Yi's poems during this period, and even heard the poem When Will the Bright Moon Rise a long time ago. Naturally, they admired Wei Yi very much. Even those students who had once studied with Wei Yi were proud of this. Du Shaoling invited Wei Yi to his study. There was another man in the room, about 40 years old, with a face of integrity. Wei Yi recognized him immediately. It was the newly appointed magistrate, Su Zhe. Su Zhe had heard about the poems and had always wanted to meet Wei Yi. However, he felt that whether he invited Wei Yi to his house or went there himself, he would be suspicious. He also didn't want to be gossiped about. He hated gossip. Therefore, meeting Wei Yi in the academy was the most appropriate place. They could communicate simply as scholars, regardless of their status. But Wei Yi didn't come empty-handed. He brought Du Shaoling a jar of Lanling wine. So, over drinks, the three of them discussed Wei Yi's poems. With the cold weather now, even when people in the city didn't eat, they would enjoy a drink. After all, alcohol can help ward off the cold. As the three chatted, Du Shaoling brought up the Wei family's cats. After all, he knew the reason. Wei Yi finally understood why there had suddenly been so many abandoned orange cats in the city. So it's Miss Su's cat that's missing. But it's possible that Miss Su's cat is at my humble abode. Lord Su, can you have Miss Su visit me later to see if there's a cat she lost? Wei Yi said with a smile. I'm truly ashamed. It was my daughter's unreasonable behavior that caused all this trouble, leaving Master Wei with the responsibility of cleaning up the mess. I'll have my daughter come and apologize later, and I, Su, will also cover the cost of feeding the cats. Su Zhe said with a look of guilt. Lord Su, don't worry. Our restaurant usually has a lot of leftovers, just enough to feed the cats. This isn't your fault, and certainly not Miss Su's. It's all caused by unhealthy practices. Wei Yi said with a smile. Young Master Wei is indeed a sensible and charitable man. But young Master Wei is right. The current Great Yan dynasty is truly corrupt, with morals declining. Wei Yi's words reminded Su Zhe and Du Shaoling of the current chaos in the court. They recalled those who fawned over the powerful and flattered the emperor. The two chatted for a while about state affairs. Wei Yi also gained a lot of useful information. He learned about the Shinran cult's disruption of the imperial court and the current situation. He was truly worried about the future of the Great Yan dynasty. Fortunately, King's House City was far away, and the Shinran cult had not yet extended its influence. By the end of the conversation, Du Shaoling and Su Zhe sighed repeatedly, their faces filled with indignation. Seeing that they were silent, and feeling a little heavy, Wei Yi took the initiative to change the subject. He mentioned his plan to fund the expansion of King Feng Academy and the construction of more private schools, to provide more children with educational opportunities. Currently, students at King Feng Academy mostly come from relatively well-off families. Given the high tuition fees, it's virtually impossible for children from less privileged backgrounds to attend, let alone ordinary people. Wei Yi's funding of the academy aims to expand its faculty and student enrollment, while also lowering tuition fees. He also provides students from less privileged backgrounds, even those from ordinary families, with the opportunity to attend the academy free of charge upon passing an exam. He also financed the construction and hired teachers for the private school, allowing talented and dedicated students to attend with minimal expense. Those with outstanding academic performance can even attend for free. Upon hearing Wei Yi's words, Du Shaoling was thrilled. He stood up from his chair, looking at Wei Yi with surprise. Young Master Wei, are you serious? Du Shaoling understood the magnitude of Wei Yi's undertaking. Even the Jingan Palace couldn't pull off such a feat. He was using his own money to help children from poor families gain access to education. Such a charitable act is like great kindness, like water moistening everything silently. Of course, I came here today to discuss this with you, Wei Yi said with a smile. Young Master Wei is truly wise and kind. Su Zhi's face was filled with emotion, and he looked at Wei Yi with admiration. They and Du Shaoling were both scholars, and they knew that education was not just empty talk, but required real money. They both had ambitions and ideals, but were financially strapped. Wei Yi, a businessman, had made a fortune, yet he actually considered benefiting thousands of students, giving countless children from ordinary families the opportunity to learn. This kindness and goodness earned his admiration, and it was worthy of the admiration of the world. As the saying goes, when poor, one should take care of oneself. When rich, one should benefit the world. I'm just doing my best, Wei Yi said with a smile. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Du Shaoling and Su Zhi were struck by lightning. They felt as if something had touched them deeply. They had never heard these words before, but they were like philosophy, like the words of a sage, truly thought-provoking. I must write it down in my little notebook and use it to teach my students. What a great saying. When you are poor, you should take care of yourself. When you are rich, you should help the world. Master Wei is indeed a man of great talent. This is simply a wise saying. Yes, this sentence really makes me feel enlightened. It is so well said. Du Shaoling and Su Zhi said with burning eyes and excited expressions. Thanks to Digital Book Friend 2017 for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Thanks to the brothers for the monthly tickets. And thanks to all the book friends who subscribed to this book. Chapter 87 Awkward. Wei Yi discussed in detail with Du Shaoling and Su Zhi about expanding the academy and building a private school. He was primarily responsible for the financial contributions, while Du Shaoling would be responsible for finding teachers. As an honest official, Su Zhi, while unable to contribute much, could do much. For example, he could leverage the city's resources and manpower to help Wei Yi minimize costs. He could even offer unused housing in the city free of charge to Wei Yi for the construction of a private school. He could even launch a government fundraising campaign, encouraging merchants to contribute. The three of them hit it off and quickly developed a detailed and thorough plan. I offer a toast to young Master Wei. On behalf of all the people of King's House City, I thank you in advance. Su Zhi raised his glass, expressing immense gratitude. Master Su, your words are too kind. I cannot accept them. No, you fully deserve them. After returning from King Feng Academy, Wei Yi was in high spirits. He had gained two very important connections today, Zhao Hanking and the county magistrate, Su Zhi. With these two connections, he could now truly call the shots in King's House City, and before long, he would establish the world's first Confucian and Taoist sect. With the help of those students, his strength would undoubtedly soar. Then, he would truly have nothing to fear. In the evening, inside the county government office, Su Zhi was in his study with the chief clerk, Zulan, sifting through vacant houses in the city suitable for establishing a private school. Just then, Su Lingyan ran in, grinning. Dad, I heard the food at Xiangmenlao in the city is delicious. Could you send someone to pack some for dinner? Su Lingyan's words immediately struck a chord. He said sternly, you reminded me. Go to Xiangmenlao later and find Manager Wei and give him a proper apology. Why? Su Lingyan looked disgruntled. Why? It's all your fault. Su Zhi explained the incident of Wei Yi taking in those cats. Hearing these words, Su Lingyan's face lit up with joy, a look of surprise. Dad, is that true? That's great. My cat must be with him too. Dad, I'm the Wei family, here to apologize. Su Lingyan said happily. She immediately dashed out of the study, but quickly returned. By the way, Dad, I'll go pick up some food and buy you a bottle of wine. Su Lingyan said with a smile, then ran out again. Su Lingyan took a car to Xiangmenlao and found a long line outside. It seems Xiangmenlao really lives up to its reputation. Su Lingyan thought to herself. She had originally thought King's House City lacked delicious food, but now it seemed Xiangmen Lao was worth the wait. Arriving at the restaurant, Su Lingyan explained her purpose to Meng Shulian. Upon learning that the other party was the daughter of County Magistrate Su, Meng Shulian immediately arranged for a waiter to take her to the backyard. Wei Yi and Wei King were in the yard, feeding a large group of cats. Seeing the cats filling the yard, Su Lingyan felt as if she had arrived in heaven. "Boss, a distinguished guest wishes to see you," the waiter said. Wei Yi glanced at Su Lingyan and immediately guessed her identity. Su Lingyan's gaze immediately fell on Wei Yi, her eyes brightening. "You must be Master Wei, right? I'm Su Lingyan, the daughter of Magistrate Su. Oh, and by the way, at my father's request, I must first apologize. I'm sorry to have troubled you." Su Lingyan gave Wei Yi a pretentious bow, as if she had completed a task, not really taking it seriously. "No problem." Wei Yi smiled faintly. He hadn't thought Su Lingyan had anything to do with this matter. He didn't see it as a problem, but rather a blessing. "By the way, I heard from Master Su that your cat is missing. See if there's one of yours here," Wei Yi said with a smile. Su Lingyan glanced at the group of cats, feeling a bit confused. Most of them were orange cats, and even their size was similar to hers. "But I have quite a few cats here. You should be able to tell yours apart, right?" Wei Yi added. "Of course, I've raised Orange since he was little. Even among so many cats, I'd recognize him instantly," Su Lingyan declared confidently. But after scanning the crowd, she was truly overwhelmed. The cat senders had truly put in the effort, selecting cats that closely resembled Orange. Of course, it was also her fault for describing him so thoroughly. "Orange," Su Lingyan called out, confident her cat would respond. Sure enough, after calling twice, one of the cats turned and looked at her. Su Lingyan's face lit up with joy. She immediately made her way through the crowd to the cat, scooping it up in her arms. "Orange, I finally found you. I've missed you so much. Don't run around anymore," Su Lingyan said affectionately, embracing the orange cat. But the cat seemed to resist in her arms, seemingly trying to break free. Just then, another orange cat scurried out of Wei Yi's study and walked to his feet, meowing a few times at Su Lingyan. "Yes, there's another one here. This is the first orange cat I picked up," Wei Yi said, looking at the orange cat at his feet. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Su Lingyan immediately looked at the orange cat at Wei Yi's feet. Then, she looked at the cat in her arms, her expression instantly frozen, and the corners of her mouth twitched. "Oh no. This is embarrassing. I actually got the wrong cat." Su Lingyan looked at Wei Yi and Wei King awkwardly. Then, she slowly put the orange cat down and let out a dry laugh. She walked over to Wei Yi, pointed at the orange cat rubbing its head against his calf, and said, "Haha, it seems this is my orange cat." Su Lingyan squatted down and carefully identified it. This time, she was sure she was right. And when the orange cat saw her, it also approached her and meowed twice. Before leaving Wei Yi's house, Su Lingyan thanked him sincerely, this time from the bottom of her heart. However, she was surprised to find her orange missing the next morning. While feeding the cats, Wei Yi spotted the orange in the yard again. "Orange, why are you back again?" Wei Yi was a bit amused. It looked like Su Lingyan would become a regular at his house. Sure enough, not long after breakfast, Su Lingyan returned to the Weiss. Since the orange cat had refused to leave, Su Lingyan hadn't left either. And with so many cats in the yard, Su Lingyan couldn't help but be enthralled. She and Wei King played with the cats, petted them, and chatted. The two girls quickly bonded, even going shopping together. Wei Yi marveled at how easily friendships between girls could form. Not long after, Wei Yi received a notification from Zhao Hanking. He immediately took Jiuo Pixie and the others to the One Family's restaurant. Thanks to the ignored bug for the 123 starting coins, and thank you all for the monthly tickets. Chapter 88, Fame and Fortune. Wang Yinchang summoned members of the city's restaurants, liquor stores, and other guilds, and publicly announced that he would be handing over the guild's leadership to Wei Yi. This news astonished the shopkeepers. Although they had anticipated this day, and many even hoped for it, they hadn't expected it to come so soon, so suddenly. Wang Yinchang, The tyrant who had bullied his peers, monopolized the industry, and committed all manner of evil, had finally fallen. They didn't know the exact circumstances, but it was clear that his defeat was complete. Otherwise, he wouldn't have relinquished his position so readily. Of course, aside from Wang Yichang himself, who was extremely depressed, everyone else was delighted. Even the restaurant owner who had previously colluded with him breathed a sigh of relief. They all knew that with Wei Yi in power, the situation in various industries would be no worse than before. Even if Xiangmenlao remained the city's most popular restaurant, far beyond their reach, at least they would have a fair chance to compete. Unlike before, when everything was completely determined by the one family's whims and preferences, everything would be fair. Every year, they had to give generous gifts to the one family to secure next year's business. Wang Yichang was like a vampire, constantly sucking and exploiting their money. Wei Yi's reputation across the hardware and handicraft industries was stellar. Under his management, the industries were visibly more prosperous than before. He never oppressed the shopkeepers and provided a relatively fair competitive environment among his peers. This truly embodied the original purpose of the guild, mutual support and solidarity. Furthermore, Wei Yi never exploited his peers or pressured them into giving gifts or money. The shopkeepers understood that, now that Wei Yi had become the head of the guild, they were effectively free from the one family's control. No longer subject to their control, they would even have the opportunity to sell Lansheng wine. This should improve their business significantly. After announcing his resignation, Wang Yichang sat aside, his face gloomy and silent. He didn't dare say anything. After all, Zhao Hanking was in the private room next door, and the transfer of the headship was only the beginning. What truly pained him was his position as head of the catering industry. As soon as the Ministry of Revenue issued the document, Meng Shulian would replace him as head of the restaurant industry. After all, according to regulations, Wei Yi was already head of the hardware and handicraft industry and could no longer hold the position. A long time later, as the shopkeepers left the Wanjia restaurant, they were beaming with joy. It felt as if the gloom that had been hanging over them had suddenly lifted. However, Wang Yichang's gloom was likely to remain forever. After the shopkeepers had departed, Wang Yichang produced numerous contracts and property deeds and handed them over to Wei Yi. These covered 3 restaurants, 5 wine shops, and 2 distilleries. One of these restaurants was the site of Xiangmenlao, the very place where the Meng family's dream began. It was also the most pressing concern for the Meng family. So, when Wei Yi returned to the restaurant and broke the good news to Meng Shulian in the counting room, she embraced Wei Yi with overwhelming joy, tears welling in her eyes. She was truly overjoyed and thrilled. She felt as if all the humiliation and grief the Meng family had endured in the past had been comforted in this moment. And all this was thanks to Wei Yi's help. Because of his presence, Meng Shulian truly didn't know how to repay Wei Yi's kindness. Even offering herself to him, working like a slave, wouldn't be enough. Thank you, Wei Yi. Thank you. Meng Shulian cried tears of joy as she hugged Wei Yi. All the hardship is over, and what remains is only good, Wei Yi said, gently stroking Meng Shulian's back. Over the next few days, Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu busied themselves taking over the restaurants, wine shops, and breweries transferred from the one family. The wine shops changed their signs and the drinks they served, and continued operating. The restaurants, however, were temporarily closed. They needed a simple renovation, chef training, and staff adjustments before reopening. Wei Yi wasn't in a rush. After all, he had enough money. Furthermore, their production capacity hadn't been increased, so even if the restaurants opened, they wouldn't be able to keep up. Therefore, he and Guo Pixiu focused their efforts on improving the winery and increasing its production capacity. Wei Yi completely transformed the former Lansheng winery into a brewery dedicated to brewing Lanling wine. The 2 wineries he inherited from the one family would be dedicated entirely to Lansheng wine. He also upgraded the brewing and storage equipment to shorten the brewing cycle. He also optimized and adjusted the brewing process, incorporating methods such as blending and infusing aromas to further enhance the taste and quality of both wines. Since Wei Yi became the head of the winery, the wives of the owners of restaurants, tea houses, and taverns in the city had practically overrun the Wei family. The gifts they gave him were so plentiful that it felt like they could open a business. Su Lingyan, on the other hand, became a regular at the Wei family. She and Wei King became close friends, sharing everything they could talk about. They were so close that they sometimes refused to go home at night, staying with Wei King. Sometimes she would also invite Wei King to stay at her house. This was the second thing that made Su Lingyan happy since she came to King's City. The first was that she discovered that the food at Xiangmenlao was very delicious. It was even better than the restaurants in the capital. However, after being invited by Wei King to eat a meal cooked by Wei Yi, Su Lingyan even felt that the food at Xiangmenlao was not delicious anymore. If her father had not asked her to go home for dinner every day, she would probably be ready to become a member of the Wei family. But despite this, Su Lingyan still found excuses to eat at the Wei family. But Wei Yi didn't mind. It was just an extra pair of chopsticks. What did the Wei family need more people? And every time he cooked, Su Lingyan and Wei King would help him. They were very diligent and obedient. Of course, during this period, the most sensational news in King's City was not the news that the one family had fallen and was completely defeated by Xiangmenlao. Rather, it was news of Wei Yi's financial support for the expansion of King Feng Academy and his plans to build a private school in the city. This event, fueled by Wei Yi's motto, "When poor, take care of yourself, when rich, benefit the world," made him a household name. Wei Yi's name became a household name, especially in the eyes of the common people. He was a sage who saved the world. He had given their children the opportunity to learn, and even offered them the chance to attend King Feng Academy. Such a charitable act was truly rare in that era, and in the hearts of countless students, Wei Yi's status steadily rose. They were drawn to his talent, but captivated by his noble character. Wei Yi's motto, "When poor, take care of yourself, when rich, benefit the world," had become their motto. Now, within King's City, Wei Yi enjoyed both fame and fortune, revered by the masses. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, Cooking Skills Advancement. Oh, by the way, Cheyenne Lu, do you know where I can buy monster blood and meat? Wei Yi suddenly asked during the carriage ride back to the restaurant from the winery. He had recently started making medicinal wines. While most of the medicinal wines he had developed used relatively common herbs, some of the more powerful ones required more precious ingredients. For example, some specifically designed to assist warriors in their training and replenish their blood and ki. Besides the many precious herbs, they also required fresh monster blood and meat. While some medicinal wines could be substituted with dried monster meat, which was also available from herbal medicine vendors, the effectiveness would be greatly reduced. This was especially true for medicinal wines that could instantly replenish a warrior's blood and ki, or even enhance their energy and strength for a short period of time. Fresh monster blood and meat, processed in a specific way, were acquired before being combined with the herbs to create the wines to be effective. You found the right person. My Guo family is the only place in this city that can obtain fresh demonic beast flesh. Guo Pixiu said with a look of pride. Demonic beasts refer to beasts that have transformed into demons. They often become demonic beasts after consuming rare treasures or encountering certain opportunities. Some grow further and become powerful monsters, some even possessing magical powers. Among these, the wicked are often great demons that wreak havoc on their local areas, feeding on humans. The virtuous often devote themselves to cultivation, aiming to transform into human form. Some join immortal sects, pursuing the path to immortality. Others form their own factions with others of their kind and fellow believers. However, for a demon to transform into a human form is no easy task. Without hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation or some extraordinary opportunity, it's virtually impossible. Therefore, the most numerous demonic beasts are typically those that have lived for dozens or even hundreds of years. While they are formidable, they lack any cultivation or magical powers. Typically, 8th and 9th rank warriors rely on the combined efforts of many others, aided by various traps and devices. There's a chance to hunt down these demonic beasts, which have lived for decades or even centuries. Their flesh is an extremely valuable medicinal ingredient, fetching a very high price. Specialized forces employ warriors to hunt demonic beasts. Their flesh and blood are a valuable nutrient for warriors, strengthening their physiques and aiding their cultivation. For cultivators, their flesh and blood are ingredients for alchemy. The Guo family boasts a team of experienced and professional demonic beast hunters, the only one in Kingshao City. Remember, this is a dangerous business. Without sufficient experience, ordinary warriors attempting to hunt demonic beasts will either fail to capture them or simply become their food. But the meat of these demonic beasts is not tasty. It's as hard as stone, and even an ordinary person's teeth wouldn't be able to break it. Furthermore, it's impossible to digest and can even be life-threatening. Guo Pixiu assumed Wei Yi was tired of ordinary delicacies and wanted to try demonic beast flesh. After all, Wei Yi wasn't a warrior, much less a medicinal herb vendor. He suddenly wanted to buy fresh monster meat and blood. What else could he do? Monster blood can't be consumed casually. Ordinary people would likely die instantly if they ate it. Warriors below the rank usually use monster blood as a medicinal bath to increase their blood energy and the chances of opening their meridians. Even warriors at the rank need to dilute it with alcohol and drink it in small frequent doses. As for monster meat, it's also only for warriors at the rank, relying on their blood energy to slowly digest it. Excessive consumption would be unbearable. Therefore, most of the time, monster meat is air-dried and used as a medicinal herb. Guo Pixiu explained to Wei Yi. He was terrified that Wei Yi, seeking excitement, would eat the monster's flesh and blood and then go to bed. Don't worry, I won't eat it. Get me some more later. I want fresh blood and meat. Wei Yi said seriously. Oh, no problem. My hunting team just set out a while ago and should be back soon. I'll keep it for you then. Oh, by the way, Brother Wei, what are you suddenly going to do with all this monster flesh and blood? Guo Pixiu asked, somewhat surprised. I'm preparing to make some powerful medicinal wine. Wei Yi said with a smile. You can make medicinal wine. Of course. When I make it, I'll let you taste it first. I guarantee your strength will skyrocket. I think it'll be like a meteor. Ha ha ha. It was almost noon when Wei Yi returned home. He went into the kitchen to prepare the meal. Wei King and Su Lingyan also appeared in time to help Wei Yi in the kitchen. After Wei Yi finished cooking dinner yesterday, his cooking skill was just a little bit away from proficiency. So today, his cooking skill would definitely reach level 5. In the backyard of the county government office, Su Zhe finished his official duties and returned home to prepare lunch. But when he ate, he found himself alone with his wife. That girl Lingyan isn't coming back for dinner again. The lady smiled but said nothing. She didn't think it was a big deal. After all, Su Lingyan seemed happy every day at this stage. She looked much plumper than before, and her complexion was very good. Every time she heard Su Lingyan describe Wei Yi's dishes, she, as a mother, longed to try his cooking. It's unbecoming of her to be constantly at someone else's house, eating and drinking for free, and you don't even bother to take care of her. Someone, go to the Wei residence and bring the young lady back. Master. Su Zhe's wife called out to him. Lingyan is almost marriageable. Didn't you say that young Master Wei is your ideal son-in-law? Since you intend to marry your daughter to the Wei family, wouldn't it be better for the two little ones to get to know each other better? You know your daughter's temper. If you tell her to marry someone she doesn't like, she'll never marry. Her unyielding character is exactly like yours. But we can't go against etiquette. I can't let young Master Wei think Lingyan doesn't know etiquette or protocol. Su Zhe's expression softened. He naturally knew his daughter's temper. Although she didn't inherit other traits, her stubbornness was even better than her father's. Lingyan is in the Wei family not because of Wei Yi. She and Miss Wei are now as close as sisters. They often eat and live together. Young Master Wei naturally won't mind. Look, Lingyan is very happy every day now. You are also a father. Don't you want your children to be happy every day? You are quite open-minded. Okay, let's eat. Su Zhe said with a straight face. After Wei Yi finished cooking lunch, his cooking proficiency reached the upgrade standard. But he didn't rush to upgrade, but waited until he went to bed at night to start upgrading. With the familiar feeling sweeping over his body, countless information merged into his mind, and Wei Yi gradually fell into a deep sleep. Thanks to Lunxian Baiyang GMG for awarding 666 starting coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 90. See you at the old place. The next day, before dawn, Wei Yi woke up hungry. He'd cooked a delicious meal in his dream the previous night, even remembering the taste and texture vividly. But even though his mouth could taste the food, his stomach felt empty. His hunger intensified, his saliva soaking the sheets. Wei Yi quickly slipped out of bed. Although the weather was freezing cold, with a light snowfall the previous night, his masculine body was like a built-in stove, completely unfazed by the cold. He simply dressed and rushed to the kitchen, where he used the leftover rice from the previous night to stir-fry a large plate of mixed meat fried rice. With this upgrade, Wei Yi's culinary skills had naturally reached a new level. He even mastered dozens of medicinal recipes. These medicinal foods were incredibly versatile. Besides nourishing and nourishing, many also had purported healing properties. There were even various medicinal foods specifically designed to aid martial artists and cultivators in their cultivation. Many of these medicinal foods had functions virtually identical to those of medicinal herbs. Through complex processes, the medicinal ingredients and food ingredients are perfectly combined, resulting in both a delicious flavor and corresponding medicinal properties. The ingredients themselves may even enhance the medicinal effects. Traditional decoctions are often prepared by boiling. This is because many medicinal ingredients cannot be used directly, let alone digested by the stomach and intestines, much like the flesh of monster. Therefore, boiling them in water extracts the medicinal properties of the ingredients and extracts their medicinal benefits, making them easier to digest and absorb. Many of Wei Yi's culinary techniques are similar to boiling decoctions, but they employ more sophisticated methods to extract the medicinal properties and even transfer them to other ingredients. Alternatively, various ingredients and herbs can be perfectly integrated, unleashing their magical medicinal properties. For example, in beef stew with potatoes, the potatoes perfectly blend the delicious flavor of the gravy with its nutrients. Wei Yi's culinary techniques include not only soups, stews, porridges, and pastes, but also numerous solid foods like meatballs and pastries. Wei Yi felt that this medicinal food, made of meatballs, was similar to the elixirs refined by cultivators. And it tasted even better. The only difference was that cultivators used furnaces for their elixirs, while he used a large cauldron. Furthermore, the recipes included various methods for cooking monster meat. While monster meat was indeed as tough as glue, it wasn't impossible to cook, though ordinary people could only consume it in small quantities. Furthermore, Wei Yi had also acquired a fire controlling ability known as furnace perfection. While this ability couldn't conjure flames out of thin air, it could control them. It primarily focused on manipulating flame temperature, raising its upper limit. Given enough flame, even monster meat could be reduced to ash. This ability could even be used in blacksmithing. From now on, he could easily smelt various materials, precisely controlling the temperature and flame. It was incredibly convenient. After devouring a large bowl of fried rice, Wei Yi felt instantly satisfied. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the sky was brightening. Wei Yi returned to his practice room and began his daily morning exercises. He now had his own dedicated practice room, adjacent to his own private bathing room. After each day's training, drenched in sweat, he'd enjoy a comfortable bath in the tub. Lately, while he was working on his fitness skills, he'd also had a few lively cats by his side to accompany him. As he did his exercises, they'd jump and leap, biting and frolicking along, cultivating a familiarity with their interactions. It was a win-win situation. However, Wei Yi didn't dare let too many cats in, fearing they'd lose their ability to exercise. The sun parted the clouds, and the weather cleared. A night of snow had blanketed Kingshao City in a blanket of white, gleaming in the sunlight. But as the sun climbed higher, the thin flakes melted, drenching the houses and streets. Only in places, under shade by the sun did a hint of white remain. That morning, Wei Yi had purchased a large quantity of herbs from a local herbalist to make medicinal wine. But just as he delivered the herbs to the brewery and returned home, his sister told him a letter had arrived. Wei Yi curiously opened the envelope. Inside, a piece of paper was scribbled with a message. Fitness boy, are you free for a drink tonight? See you at our usual place. Seeing this, Wei Yi couldn't help but smile. He hadn't expected this shaman to reappear after such a long absence. He burned the letter to ashes. He could tell the handwriting wasn't Shamat's own, and it wasn't the same handwriting as the other person. Clearly, he didn't want to leave any clues. Or perhaps, he didn't want to implicate himself. This guy was truly cautious. I'm going to the old house today, to forge some good pots. Wei Yi thought to himself. The recipes for his potent medicinal foods were complex, requiring a wide variety of pots and pans. Furthermore, the quality requirements were extremely high. Some of his cooking methods were unique, requiring pots that could withstand extreme heat and cold. Ordinary iron pots simply couldn't meet the requirements. It wouldn't take long for it to rust or even break. So Wei Yi decided to forge some pots and pans himself. He brought the 5-bead sword he'd forged for the shamat, as well as some sauces and seasonings for cooking. He also had someone bring a large jar of wine from the restaurant. Then he took a carriage to the old house. On the way, he stopped by the market and bought a lot of ingredients. The old house wasn't abandoned. The iron shop at the door had reopened and was doing brisk business. There were clerks in the shop, looking after the sales, and servants in the yard, responsible for cleaning and looking after the house. After Wei Yi arrived at the old house, he gave the servant a day off, so he could go back home to visit his family. He then started to light the furnace, preparing to heat the materials for forging. After a long time, the long-lost sound of forging could be heard again in the courtyard. It took Wei Yi a full 4 hours to forge all the pots and pans he needed. By this time, it was already completely dark. The iron shop had closed, and the shop assistants had all left. Wei Yi was the only one left in the entire house. However, Wei Yi was not afraid that someone would take advantage of the opportunity to harm him. He already had enough self-defense. After forging all the pots, Wei Yi used the magic method to bless them, increasing their performance and adding color and flavor to the dishes. It's almost time to cook. Wait for that shaman to come. Wei Yi thought to himself. He knew that the shaman must have known he was here. He probably waited until the aroma wafted out and came here. Sure enough, as the aroma of cooking wafted from the kitchen, a figure appeared near the kitchen. Almost at the same time, an inconspicuous bell hanging by the door suddenly rang automatically. That bell had also been blessed by Wei Yi, and it would automatically ring when someone approached. Thanks to the mobile phone login cannot bind this number 555 for awarding 500 starting coins. Thanks to digital book friend 151 for awarding 100 starting coins. Thank you all for the monthly ticket. Chapter 91, Shamat's Invitation. Hearing the chime of the bell, Shachan paused. He looked in surprise at the bell, which rang automatically without a sound. At the same moment, Wei Yi's voice echoed from the kitchen. I'm here. Along with the voice, Wei Yi's face peeked out from the kitchen window. Long time no see. Wei Yi smiled and waved, his gaze fixed on the shaman. The man was also wearing nightgown, but instead of a mask, his face was covered with a black cloth, revealing only a pair of resolute eyes and sword-like eyebrows. Is that bell a magical weapon? The shaman asked. I guess so. Wei Yi said non-committally. It seems you no longer need my protection. Not really. It's precisely because you're gone that I need to be more cautious. Wei Yi said with a smile. Shachan simply nodded, saying nothing more. Come in, you can help me add some wood to the fire. Wei Yi didn't hesitate to greet the shaman. Okay. The shaman walked into the kitchen, unarmed. Instead, 2 swords lay on the kitchen chopping board. A fish stewed in a pot, its aroma radiating and mouth-watering. A whole boneless chicken sat on the cutting board. Wei Yi stuffed the chicken with various seasonings and said, by the way, thank you for helping me eliminate the Liu family. As agreed, I'll forge you a 5-bead sword. No need for that. I'll help you eliminate Liu few gears a way of repaying you for saving my life. Hearing Shamat's words, Wei Yi was slightly surprised. He hadn't expected him to know he'd saved his life. Could it be that he sensed something when he cast that blessing? It seemed that was the case. Shachan added, and I only helped you kill Liu Fugi. The Liu family was wiped out by someone else. I don't know who it was, but I can only say that the Liu family had offended so many people that someone took advantage of the situation and wiped out their entire family. Not you? Wei Yi looked at Shaman in surprise. Well, after all, the women of the Liu family were pitiful people too. They were innocent. Shachan added. Wei Yi nodded. Come to think of it, many of the Liu family's concubines were forced to marry Liu Fugi. They were indeed pitiful people. Anyway, that sword was forged for you. Take it and use it. If you feel embarrassed, just help me out when you have a chance in the future. Wei Yi said. Alright. Shamad nodded, no longer being polite. He immediately took some firewood, broke it, and put it on the stove. By the way, have you been away from King's House City recently? Wei Yi paused and asked again. Well, I just came back yesterday. If I hadn't missed eating your cooking, I probably wouldn't have come back. Shamad said. Then after you finish this meal, you really won't want to leave King's House City anymore. Wei Yi said with a smile. Then I'd like to see your cooking skills in action. Shachan said with a smile. He immediately pulled a jade pendant from his waist and tossed it to Wei Yi. Take this. If you want to find me next time, just take this jade pendant to my Oin Fang and ask for Mr. Gong. Wei Yi examined the pendant. It had the words My Oin Fang written on it, but the pattern on it seemed quite unique. Okay. Wei Yi put it away. Although there are some things I might not be able to ask, would you mind letting me know a little about you or your group? I'm from the Xiangsha League. We are not some secretive organization. If you're interested, you should be able to hear a lot about us, Shachan said. Xiangsha League. Wei Yi nodded. He had never heard of the name before, but that was understandable. Compared to the rest of the world, he was still a frog in a well. He only knew a few things about King's House City. He only learned a little about the situation in the capital and the court that day from Du Shaoling and Su Zhe's conversation. So it was understandable that he hadn't heard of the Xiangsha League. Although the Shinran cult calls our Xiangsha Alliance a demonic sect, they are the true demonic sect. The Shinran cult disrupts government order and attacks loyal officials. Their members abuse their power and commit crimes everywhere. Our Xiangsha Alliance upholds justice for all, so naturally we cannot coexist with them, Shachan said. Wei Yi nodded. The victors are kings and the Shinran cult, now designated as a state religion, possesses power and status. Naturally, they can define other sects and forces. However, he has his own judgment on right and wrong. Of course, if you're interested, you can consider joining our Xiangsha Alliance. That way, you'll get to know us better, Shachan added, which was one of the main reasons for his visit tonight. We are an alliance, not a sect. We are a group of like-minded individuals united by shared ideals. Members can be anyone, from commoners to princes and nobles, even the heads of clans. So, if you become a member of our Xiangsha Alliance, outwardly, everything will remain normal. You'll still be a 5th rank swordsmith, the owner of Xiangmen Lao, and the head of the hardware handicraft industry. However, you may be asked to complete certain tasks privately, to contribute to the Xiangsha Alliance. These tasks will vary depending on the individual, and we won't force anyone. For example, someone skilled in intelligence gathering will engage in intelligence gathering. Someone skilled in assassination will focus on assassination. Someone with immense wealth can become our financial backer. We will fully leverage the strengths of each member to form an unbreakable alliance. We won't restrict members' freedom, but we will have a strict hierarchy. Of course, if you join our Xiangsha Alliance, you don't have to start as a member at the very beginning. I can recommend you to become a deacon in King's House City. You'll have access to our Xiangsha Alliance intelligence network and access a wealth of information you could ever need. Although our Xiangsha Alliance has only been in King's House City for a short time, we already have quite a few members here. We have people you know and don't know. So I sincerely hope you can join us. After hearing Shamat's words, Wei Yi couldn't help but ponder. To be honest, he was a little tempted. After all, he desperately needed intelligence. Coming from the information age, Wei Yi understood the importance of information. Without it, he would be like a frog in a well, his understanding of this country, and indeed the world, extremely limited. Think about how Shamat had previously been able to grasp the Liu family's movements with such clarity. This was definitely not something he could have accomplished on his own. It seemed that the Xianxia alliance was truly exceptional in intelligence gathering. Well, I'll consider it. Wei Yi didn't reply to Shamat immediately. After all, there was no rush. Come on, help me heat up the pot. Wei Yi cooked 3 more dishes. Shachan drooled the entire time, inwardly admiring Wei Yi's unparalleled culinary skills. Even if the food he cooked was poisoned, he wouldn't spit it out. By the time the food arrived, Shachan's black cloth covering his face was soaked. You're not planning on making a hole in this black cloth to eat with, are you? Wei Yi said with a smile. Haha, I forgot. Shachan's eyes flickered with a smile. He then ripped the black cloth off his face. Chapter 92. What's in the palace? Hey, I didn't see anything. Don't kill me to silence me. Wei Yi pretended to turn his head away, but he had already taken in the man's features. He had a handsome, heroic face, probably in his early 30s, with a prominent scar on his left cheek. He looked like one of those people who looks like a master. Formally introduce myself. I'm Shachan, deputy head of the Chixin Hall of the Xianxia League. Shachan said seriously, cupping his hands. He was naturally not afraid of Wei Yi recognizing him. After all, he had been saved by him. And he felt that, if he couldn't even let Wei Yi see his true face, how could he invite him to become a member of his Xianxia League? Hearing Shachan's name, Wei Yi raised an eyebrow and looked at him meaningfully. It was such a coincidence that his last name was Shamat, Shachan. Although he suspected that the other person's name was just a code name, not his real name, it seemed that there was some kind of strange connection. Wei Yi also cupped his hands and said seriously. Shachan smiled, knowing that from this moment on, they were friends. Wei Yi and Shachan toasted each other, chatting freely about family, country, and the world, as well as interesting stories from the martial arts world. But they didn't talk about each other. They both knew each other had many secrets they didn't want anyone else to know. Friends treat each other with sincerity, respecting and supporting each other. Being honest with each other meant being honest with one's feelings, not one's own secrets. Wei Yi and Shachan didn't drink much. According to Shachan, ever since his life changed, he no longer liked the feeling of being numbed by alcohol. He almost never drank, as the smell of alcohol could give him away. However, Shachan devoured every last morsel of Wei Yi's cooking, even leaving him wanting more. By the way, I've been researching medicinal foods that can aid cultivation and boost blood energy. I'll treat you to some later, Wei Yi said with a smile. Okay, but I can't just eat and drink for free. If you need any special herbs for your medicinal recipes, you can ask me. With our Xianxia Alliance's intelligence network, we can definitely help you get anything that exists in this world, Shachan said confidently. Well, there are 2 herbs that are really hard to come by. One is called fire spirit grass, and the other is called dragon head fruit. Can you help me find them? Wei Yi said. Although he had commissioned a herbal medicine dealer to find these 2 herbs, the dealer was certainly not as well informed as the Xianxia Alliance. These 2 herbs are really hard to come by. They're almost as rare treasures. But don't worry, I can help you get them. The 2 chatted until midnight, and the food was already gone. During this time, Shachan also brought up the One family. He guessed that Wei Yi would eliminate the One family next, but he advised that the One family was not that simple. He hoped Wei Yi would wait a little longer, otherwise he might get into trouble. Wei Yi knew that this Shamat must have some information. Come to think of it, in this world, where extraordinary power exists, the One family's rise to power and impunity in Kingsao City for so many years meant more than meets the eye. Otherwise, with their vast wealth, they would have long been coveted. However, they held some hidden cards, which they would never use unless absolutely necessary. This world is a complex place, and one must tread cautiously and not become overconfident. Before leaving, Wei Yi gave Shachan the sword he had forged. Finally, under Shachan's covered protection, they returned to their new home. Wei Yi didn't bring back the pots he had forged. After all, he could arrange for someone to bring them back tomorrow. Returning home, Wei Yi spent another hour honing his writing skills before retiring to bed. The next morning, Zhao Jinsi sent someone to the Wei family's home to invite Wei Yi to the Jing'an Palace. Located in the heart of the inner city, the Jing'an Palace was considered the city's most prestigious address. Ordinary people couldn't even get close, and Wei Yi had naturally never been there before. Upon arriving at the palace, Wei Yi couldn't help but marvel at its vastness. However, Wei Yi, well versed in history, knew that the Jing'an Palace had previously served as the imperial palace of a small kingdom. Therefore, its area was indeed vast, and its architecture and scenery were quite magnificent. However, shortly after Wei Yi entered the palace, he vaguely sensed that the golden light that had transformed into a small sun within his sea of consciousness seemed to be shifting. Concentrating intently, he carefully sensed it, and was surprised to discover that a golden thread emanated from the small sun and flew out of his sea of consciousness. At the same time, Wei Yi saw a golden thread appear in the void before him. It stretched far into the distance, landing in the southeast corner of the palace. What's going on? Wei Yi was surprised. This was his first time seeing such a phenomenon. Although he knew he didn't fully understand the purpose of the golden light, one thing was certain, the golden light in his sea of consciousness couldn't be something ominous. Rather, it was something auspicious. However, this was the royal palace, and he couldn't follow the golden thread deeper into the investigation. But consider this, the Zhao family is a long-standing martial arts family. Furthermore, this palace was once the imperial palace of a small kingdom, steeped in history. It's no surprise that something extraordinary exists, or is hidden, here. Young Master Wei, we are here. The palace servants led Wei Yi to the courtyard where Zhao Jinsi lived. Quite a few people were gathered there. Besides Lin Zuna, whom Wei Yi had met, there were Zhao Jinsi's two underage brothers, as well as the sons and daughters of other princes, nobles, and generals. Most of them were from prominent families. Of course, literary master Du Shaoling and two other highly respected scholars from King Feng Academy were also there. After all, if Zhao Jinsi were to meet a man of the opposite sex alone in the palace, it would be gossiped about. It would also be against the palace's rules. While she didn't care about the criticism, she had to consider her mother's reputation. So, she had to find a pretext, inviting Wei Yi to attend under the guise of a small, elegant gathering. Seeing Wei Yi approach, Lin Zuna was the first to run over. Staring at Wei Yi with her bright, wide eyes, she looked expectantly at him. Master Wei, have you found my once-in-a-lifetime gift? Lin Zuna's words left everyone present with a look of doubt, and they exchanged glances. But Wei Yi naturally understood what Lin Zuna meant. Not yet. This extraordinary item naturally requires waiting for the perfect opportunity, Wei Yi said with a smile. Oh, alright. Lin Zuna pouted slightly in disappointment. Let me introduce you all. This is Wei Yi, Master Wei. Following Zhao Jinsi's introduction, Wei Yi exchanged greetings with everyone. The scene then became like a fan meeting, with Wei Yi the center of attention. Everyone brought gifts for Wei Yi, including stationery, calligraphy, and paintings. He showered him with compliments. Some fans even brought precious paintings from their own collections for Wei Yi to appreciate, hoping he'd leave a signature. It was like fans asking celebrities for their autographs. Of course, when scholars sought calligraphy, it was more than just a signature. This appreciation of the paintings, leaving behind the calligraphy, was intended to encourage Wei Yi to write a few words about the painting's content, a kind of finishing touch. Fortunately, Wei Yi's repertoire of poetry was sufficient for these largely similar landscapes and pavilions. This was thanks to the ancient poet's fondness for wandering, composing poems wherever they visited. This provided him with an inexhaustible supply of famous lines. From the side, a mountain becomes a peak. From the front, a peak. From a distance, height and depth appear different. A waterfall plunges 3,000 feet, as if the Milky Way descends from the sky. I will ascend to the summit, and see all the other mountains as small. The setting sun and the lone wild goose fly together. The autumn water and the sky become one color. Wei Yi composed a line or two of poetry for each painting, once again stunning the group of young men and women. What a wonderful poem. What a wonderful poem. Wonderful. The setting sun and the lone wild goose fly together. The autumn water and the vast sky become one color. This line is absolutely brilliant. It's truly the finishing touch. Young Master Wei's calligraphy is truly magnificent and majestic. Everyone present was amazed and praised the poem endlessly. Even Zhao Jin's mother, Princess Yan, and other concubines, wives, and the crown prince's wife rushed to admire the poems Wei Yi had inscribed on the paintings. Chapter 93 News from Second Uncle. Wei Yi was not stingy with his words. After all, everyone present was contributing to his golden light. In the future, they would even contribute their willpower to him, perhaps even becoming his students. Of course, Wei Yi wouldn't miss such a golden opportunity. So, over tea and casual conversation, he deliberately mentioned to Master Du the expansion of the academy and the construction of a private school. Zhao Jinsi immediately chimed in, saying she would also donate money and materials to support Wei Yi's ambitious endeavor. Everyone present was a bright mind, so naturally, they responded, deciding to contribute financially and physically. I'm deeply moved by your kindness, but besides money, I'd also like you to donate more books to the students, Wei Yi said with a smile. After all, what he lacked the most at the moment was money, and these young men and women, though from prominent families, couldn't afford much. They weren't nearly as wealthy as the merchants, but their families undoubtedly held valuable collections of books. This was something far more important than money. Well, young Master Wei's suggestion is a good one. Yes, young Master Wei, such a kind act, we will certainly lend our full support. Upon hearing everyone's words, Zhao Jinsi immediately said, since everyone is so kind, I will collect the books you've donated for young Master Wei, and send them to King Feng Academy. On behalf of all the students, I would like to thank you all in advance. Du Shaoling also stood and bowed to express his gratitude. At noon, the palace hosted a banquet for everyone. Wei Yi and the others enjoyed a drink, naturally, the fine Lanling wine from their winery. During the meal, the two young masters of the palace, Zhao Zielin and Zhao Xian, and Lin Zuna, also surrounded Wei Yi. These two were also martial arts geniuses. Although only 13 or 14 years old, they were already 8th grade warriors. Like Lin Zuna, they were also passionate swordsmen. Lin Zuna had even mentioned Wei Yi's heavenly sword, and they were extremely curious. They wanted to see Wei Yi's sword, but they were wary of being too abrupt and impolite. So they kept surrounding him, toasting and discussing the sword for a long time. Zhao Zielin finally spoke, young Master Wei, a few days ago, Sister Zuna told me about the extraordinary Yishan sword you forged. My brother and I are incredibly curious. Could you please let us see it? As he spoke, his eyes flicked to the sword at Wei Yi's waist. Wei Yi had roughly guessed their intentions, seeing as they kept casually glancing at their swords. Lin Zuna's gaze was even more direct, barely moving from her waist. Of course, Wei Yi smiled, unsheathed his sword, and handed it to Zhao Zielin. Lin Zuna and Zhao Xian, standing nearby, immediately rushed over to Zhao Zielin, their eyes aglow with excitement, their eyes gleaming as they gazed at the sword in his hand. Zhao Zielin pulled the sword from its scabbard, its long sword humming softly, a gleam of brilliance gleaming. Like a silver dragon emerging from the sea, its aura was overwhelming and soul-stirring. For a moment, Zhao Zielin was also overwhelmed by the sword's power, and it took him a long time to recover. His gaze on the heavenly sword was even more intense, and he was even more excited. This sword is truly extraordinary. Fifth brother, let me see it. Zhao Xian couldn't wait to take the heavenly sword from Zhao Zielin. His face was also filled with surprise, his heart beating wildly at the extraordinary aura. But before Zhao Xian could fully appreciate it, Lin Zuna snatched it away. She hadn't examined it thoroughly last time, so this time she naturally wanted to experience it again, even more deeply. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. Such a precious sword, she really wanted to hold it in her hands every day, and play with it endlessly. What a fine sword. When I become a 6th rank warrior, I'll definitely ask Master Wei to forge one for me. Indeed, if I become a general someday, I'll definitely have a sword like this. Brothers Zhao Xian and Zhao Zielin sighed as they gazed at the heavenly sword in Lin Zuna's hand. They weren't yet worthy of wielding the 5 pearls precious sword. However, Wei Yi's heavenly sword had become their dream and their driving force. Master Wei, if you have the opportunity to forge a few more of these swords in the future, please leave one for us two brothers. Zhao Zielin bowed. Of course. Alas, when will my opportunity come? Lin Zuna pouted, a hint of resentment beside them. She looked desperately longing, yet unsatisfied. Wei Yi smiled but said nothing. He knew the girl was a little impatient. But without foreplay to whet the appetite, how could the preciousness of the sword be truly appreciated? At that moment, the ground in the hall suddenly shook, like a rolling earth dragon or an earthquake. Everyone around him gasped in surprise, and cries of surprise echoed outside. Fortunately, the shaking wasn't particularly strong or long-lasting. After everything calmed down, everyone began to discuss the situation, but none of them understood what had happened. They simply assumed it was an earthquake. But Wei Yi felt the shaking was a little unusual. Because of this minor disturbance, the banquet ended prematurely. The young men and women from various families bid farewell, contentedly departing the palace. But just as Wei Yi was about to leave, Du Shaoling offered to ride in Wei Yi's carriage. Wei Yi noticed that the golden thread had vanished the moment he left the palace. Shortly after Du Shaoling boarded the carriage, he pulled a letter from his pocket and handed it to Wei Yi. "This is a letter from your second uncle," Du Shaoling said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Wei Yi's eyes lit up with joy, and he quickly took the letter, though the envelope was blank. "The princess couldn't deliver it to you at her residence, so she asked me to deliver it. Some time ago, the princess wrote to Prince Yun, asking him to help look after your uncle. Your uncle has been promoted to deputy master carpenter, now holding an official position. Prince Yun also petitioned Prince Jingan to allow your uncle to return to reunite with you during the new year." Hearing Du Shaoling's words, Wei Yi was overjoyed. He was deeply grateful for Zhao Jin's help. Everything was going as he had hoped, and it was progressing in a positive direction. Now, his uncle had gone from being a criminal to deputy master carpenter at the armory. Not only had he been completely cleared of his guilt, but he had also received an official position. And with Prince Yun's care, he didn't have to worry about his uncle suffering. Wei Yi knew full well that Prince Yun was the eldest legitimate son of Prince Jingan, the heir to the title, the true crown prince. Although Zhao Hanking was also honored as the crown prince by the sons of merchants, it was merely a respectful title. Still, as Prince Jingan's sons, even a bastard son, his status and position were unmatched by ordinary people. And while Zhao Hanking had no aspirations of becoming a noble or a prime minister, his connections and influence in the underworld far surpassed those of any other prince in the palace. Not even Prince Yun could match that. Wei Yi even wondered if everything Zhao Hanking did was directed by Prince Jingan. Wei Yi wanted to open the letter, but on second thought, he held back, deciding it would be better to let his aunt open it after returning home. Chapter 94 Where to buy this wine? Wei Tieshan's letter filled the entire family with joy, and Wei Zu was so moved that tears welled up in her eyes. In it, Wei Tieshan recounted his recent experiences. Thanks to someone looking after him, he hadn't suffered much hardship at the armory. He was now appreciated by Prince Yun and promoted to deputy master craftsman. Not only had his charges been absolved, but he also received a salary. He was even promised that he could return home to celebrate the spring festival with his family. The knowledge that Wei Tieshan would return for the spring festival filled the family with joy and new anticipation. Time slipped quietly amidst this anticipation. The restaurants acquired from the one family were gradually opening, finally resolving the problem of insufficient supply. Diners no longer had to wait in the cold for a table. Furthermore, the upgraded Lansheng and Lanling wines had already been released. Current production capacity was more than sufficient to meet the needs of the entire city. Lanling wine's new flavors, including strong aroma, sauce aroma, and light aroma, were creating a new wave of popularity. Sought after by countless drinkers, it has become the city's most renowned fine wine. Most restaurants in the city have now partnered with Wei Yi's winery and begun selling Lansheng wine. However, Lanling wine is still only available at Xiangmen Lao, the Wei family's wine shop, and the Guo family's brothel. Xiangmen Lao's main branch remains the city's best restaurant. As Wei Yi envisioned, it has become a landmark in Kingsao City. Business travelers, even diners and scholars from the nearby county town, flock here specifically to sample the food and drinks and admire the poetry and paintings. Of course, Xiangmen Lao's other branches are also doing well, still far surpassing other restaurants. However, since they began selling Lansheng wine, their business has actually improved significantly. Meanwhile, the one family restaurant's business has become increasingly bleak. With the exception of the main branch, which is barely breaking even, the other restaurants are struggling to make ends meet and have gradually closed down. The Winner's sales were dismal. Even after they lowered their prices, they continued to decline. With the upgraded flavors of Lansheng wine and the subsequent price reduction, their business was completely wiped out, barely selling a single jar a day and facing bankruptcy. Wei Yi's plan to promote education had begun to bear fruit. The private school was complete, and classes had begun as normal. This provided learning opportunities for many children from ordinary families in the city who loved learning. Although the Qingfeng Academy's expansion was still underway, some children from poor families had already passed the assessment and entered Qingfeng Academy. Wei Yi's heroic effort in promoting education had earned him immense fame and the admiration of countless people. Somewhere in the woods, the cold wind rustled the branches, making them whistle. With a resounding roar, like thunder, his inner energy spread, shaking the surrounding trees. 2 grey-robed men were sent flying backwards, finally hitting the ground hard, dead. The assassins were a middle-aged Taoist priest in tattered clothes, carrying a long sword, his hair in a messy bun, a stubble on his face, and a languid expression. He clutched a wine gourd in his left hand. Seeing his companion slain by the Taoist's palm strike, the stern-faced man in purple robes beside them took flight. The slovenly Taoist priest, however, remained calm. He took another sip of his wine and then, with his right hand, formed a magical gesture. Qi transformed into a massive hand, striking the purple-clad man at an ever-increasing speed. Knowing he could neither flee nor evade, the man, his face filled with fear, turned, formed a hand seal, and launched 2 talismans. Evil runes illuminated them, and 2 red light curtains instantly coalesced before him. Boom. Almost simultaneously, the massive Qi palm slammed heavily onto the red light curtains. The 2 light curtains instantly shattered, and a terrifying burst of Qi exploded before the purple-clad man. The man's robes were torn, his ribs caved in, and he spitted blood as he flew backward. The terrifying force of Qi also shattered the wine jug at his waist, causing the wine inside to flow out. A burst of aroma instantly wafted out. The Taoist, who had previously had a lazy expression, raised his eyebrows, his eyes suddenly sharp. His gaze immediately locked onto the wine jug at the purple-robed man's waist. With a flash of his body, he appeared beside the purple-robed man as if by teleportation. The moment the purple-robed man landed, he ripped the wine jug from his waist and sniffed it. "What a fragrant wine!" the slovenly Taoist exclaimed in delight. He immediately enveloped the wine jug with his Qi to prevent further leakage. He then opened the jug and took a sip, his heart instantly filled with joy, his face growing even brighter. "What a fine wine, hey, kid, where did you get this?" The slovenly Taoist gazed at the purple-robed man on the ground, but he saw the man's whole body twitching, and he kept coughing up blood. It was obvious that the palm strike he had just made was too strong, and he was about to die. Hey, don't die yet." The sloppy Taoist hurriedly poured the wine from the wine pot into his gourd. Then he pulled the man up, first gave him a pill, and then used his true energy to heal his wounds. After a long day of treatment, the purple-clothed man, who was originally on the verge of death, was pulled back from the brink of death by him. When the purple-clothed man opened his eyes again and regained consciousness, he saw the sloppy Taoist looking at him with a flattering smile. He couldn't help but feel, "Oh my god," in his heart. "Finally you're awake. I hit you too hard just now. It took a lot of effort to save you," the sloppy Taoist said with a smile on his face. What are you doing?" The purple-clothed man crossed his arms and looked terrified. "Boy, let me ask you, what's the name of that fine wine in that jug you carry, and where did you buy it?" the slovenly Taoist asked. Upon hearing this, the purple-robed man's mouth twitched, a look of bewilderment on his face. Could it be that this Taoist had killed him and then revived him just to ask this question? You saved me, didn't you, just to ask this?" the purple-robed man asked. "Otherwise, so tell me now, don't waste my time." The purple-robed man was furious, but he also saw a glimmer of hope and said, "If you promise to let me go, I'll tell you." Okay. Tell me now. No, you have to swear to heaven that you won't kill me, and then I'll tell you. The purple-robed man continued. Okay, I swear to heaven that I will never kill you, or I will die. The slovenly Taoist swore earnestly. As a cultivator, oaths made to heaven are truly fulfilled, and the purple-robed man breathed a sigh of relief. This wine is called Lanling Fine Wine, and it can be bought at Xiangmenlao in King's House City. The purple-robed man said truthfully. Upon hearing the man's words, the slovenly Taoist's face lit up with joy. He knew King's House City, of course. He could pass through it on his way to Xuanzang Mountain. He had recently heard that a rare treasure had been unearthed in Xuanzang Mountain, and he was planning to go there. It was a good idea to stop by King's House City on the way to buy more wine. Lanling Fine Wine, a good name. I'll remember it. Alright, you can die now. Chapter 95. Listening to music in a brothel. Hearing the sloppy Taoist's words, the purple-robed man's face paled, and he immediately said in panic, didn't you swear you would never kill me? Yes, so please understand. The purple-robed man was speechless. You can't be like this. I won't commit suicide. The purple-robed man said fiercely. By the way, have you ever tried fish sashimi? It's raw fish meat cut into thin slices. There are even chefs with superb knife skills who can cut directly into live fish. The fish will be completely devoid of flesh, yet it's still alive. It's amazing. I'm going to use this method to slice you up too, but don't worry, I promise you won't die. Even if you can't hold on, I'll revive you and then continue slicing. The purple-robed man's mouth twitched at the sloppy Taoist's words. He immediately erupted in curses. Fuck, are you even a righteous person? How can you be even more vicious than us, the demon sect? It turns out you righteous people are all just a bunch of hypocrites. Hey, don't say that. Same here. The purple-robed man collapsed on the ground in despair. He'd really met a psychopath. He absolutely believed the man before him was capable of such a thing. He'd rather commit suicide than be tortured to death. He hadn't expected it. He was going to die twice in one day. It was unbelievable. The purple-robed man gritted his teeth, drew the short blade from his waist, and severed his own aorta. Well, the boy's teachable. The slovenly Taoist nodded in satisfaction, then took a sip from his wine gourd, his face instantly glowing. Good wine, truly good wine. In a room in the Wan family mansion. The door was closed. Wang Yinchang sat at the tea table, brewing tea, steam rising from the air. There was another figure sitting in front of him. The person was wearing a grey robe, and his face was also shrouded in a hood, making it impossible to see his face clearly. Your Excellency, you don't know, these 3,000 taels of silver took a lot of effort from me, even selling a house to get them. Alas, now my Wan family is about to be driven out of King's House City. Wang Yinchang said with a sad face. He immediately poured the brewed tea into the white jade teacup, and handed it respectfully to the grey-robed person. What happened? The grey-robed person asked in a deep voice, and then picked up the teacup, and took a sip. Alas, it's hard to put it into words. Wang Yinchang sighed, and then exaggerated what had happened recently. So now, my Wan family's assets have dwindled to a mere tenth of what remains. If this continues, King's House City will likely be completely empty. Don't worry, just be patient. Our Shinran sect will soon enter King's House City. His Majesty will soon issue an order to build a Shinran sect Taoist temple in King's House City, and your second brother will be assigned to manage its affairs. From now on, this will be our Shinran sect's territory, and your Wan family will once again take its place as the leading merchant family, the grey-robed man said. Hearing this, Wang Yinchang's brows lit up with joy. He quickly raised his teacup and said, Your Excellency's words reassure me. I offer you a toast of tea instead of wine. By the way, Your Excellency, there's one thing I don't understand. Since Suzhi is so stubborn, why not eliminate him completely? Instead of demoting him to the position of magistrate in King's Hao? Wang Yinchang asked. He was beginning to have a strong grudge against Suzhi. If a more sophisticated official had come, he wouldn't be so passive right now. Keeping him around certainly has its uses. No, to be more precise, his daughter. As for the specific reasons, that's not something you can know for now. Anyway, just do your job. In Wei Yi's study. Brother Wei, you haven't seen Miss Liu dance. She's truly graceful, like a startled swan, like a graceful dragon, her clothes fluttering, like a fairy from heaven, descended to earth. Her slender waist is so supple it seems boneless, and her legs are incredibly lithe. Every time she dances, she's like a soft ribbon, swaying gracefully in the wind. It's truly enchanting. I wonder how many men in this city are obsessed with her. It's a pity that she only sells her art, not her body. Even for ordinary people, it's difficult to see her, to share a drink with her. Guo Pixiu stood at his desk, his face beaming with joy. Wei Yi remained silent, painting to himself, awaiting his next words. He knew very well that Guo Pixiu definitely had something to ask of him. Brother Wei, do you want to see Miss Liuru's dance? How about we go together tonight? It's my treat. Guo Pixiu suddenly said. Wei Yi smiled but said nothing. He knew that Guo Pixiu had laid out all these plans just to get him to go. As for the reason, tell me, what did Miss Liuru promise you? Wei Yi asked without even looking up. Ah, nothing. I just think your life is too boring, writing, painting, and working as a blacksmith every day. Go out and listen to some music, watch some dance, and cultivate your sentiments. Guo Pixiu said pretentiously. Stop talking nonsense, and tell the truth, otherwise I will never go. Haha, as expected, nothing can be hidden from Brother Wei. That, hey, Miss Liuru has admired you for a long time and really wants to meet you. She said that, if I can invite you over, I can borrow your favor, and go to her private room to sit together, drink tea with her, and appreciate the dance she prepared for you up close. You don't know, but not everyone can be invited into the private room by her, and it's useless to spend money. Anyway, I have never been in there. I knew you would do nothing for a profit, but I don't have time tonight. Wei Yi said. He had an appointment with Master Du to discuss business in the evening. Guo Pixiu paused, his eyes suddenly flashed, and he said, don't worry, if shopkeeper Meng asks, I will say that I forced you to go, and shopkeeper Meng will definitely not blame you. It has nothing to do with shopkeeper Meng. Okay, stop pretending. Everyone knows that you and shopkeeper Meng are in love. It's only a matter of time, and I think you two are a good match. Shopkeeper Meng is a rare good woman, and her appearance is stunningly beautiful. If shopkeeper Meng likes me, I would wake up laughing in my dreams. But then again, it's normal for a man to occasionally go to a brothel to listen to music, watch dancing, and drink. Shopkeeper Meng is also a well-educated person and he will definitely not mind. I said it's not because of shopkeeper Meng. I have to talk to Master Du tonight. How can I have time to accompany you? Let's do it another day. Wei Yi said. Oh, then, how about tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? Let's talk about it tomorrow. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Guo Pixiu was overjoyed and said with a playful smile, okay, Brother Wei, I promise you won't regret going. Alright, don't bother me painting. Go do what you need to do. Haha, I'll go tell Miss Liuru the good news and tell her to clean up. Ugh, let's say, prepare carefully. Guo Pixiu said as he walked out of the room. Watching Guo Pixiu leave, Wei Yi smiled and shook his head. In fact, he did plan to visit the various brothels in the city more often recently. After all, he had recently agreed to join the Xianxia Alliance. He needed to know the information because, in this world, he was like a blind man, let alone talk about it. From now on, any communication with the Xianxia Alliance, gatherings, passing on information, and even looking for Shachan would basically all be done through Miaoinfang, or at Miaoinfang itself. If I had never been to those places of entertainment, and suddenly went to Miaoinfang one day, and only to Miaoinfang, it would inevitably attract the attention of those with ulterior motives. So, to conceal my presence, I had to go to those places of entertainment frequently to enjoy myself, and cultivate new skills and hobbies. This way, I wouldn't appear too abrupt and attract attention. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, The Extraordinary Power of Scholars. After Guo Pixiu left, Wei Yi calmed down and continued painting. He was painting the legendary auspicious beast Beza. However, he had no idea if such a beast existed in this world, let alone what it actually looked like. His painting of Beza was entirely based on his imagination, drawing on images of mythical beasts from various games he had played in his past life. He felt it was incredibly majestic and powerful, and the artistic conception was captivating. 5 days earlier, Wei Yi's painting skills had successfully advanced to the 3rd level. This had also granted him a painting power known as leaping onto paper. As the name suggests, this power allows the subject of a painting to materialize from the paper. As Wei Yi concentrates his brush and ink energy within the ink, he can then summon the subject through a special method after the painting is completed. However, the amount of brush and ink energy consumed by this power depends entirely on the subject and the desired artistic conception. Generally speaking, the more detailed and realistic his painting, the more brush and ink energy he consumes. The larger the space occupied by the object being drawn, or in other words, its volume, the more brush and ink energy is consumed to materialize it. Living objects consume more brush and ink energy than inanimate objects. However, the object's manifestation is merely the condensation of brush and ink energy. While it possesses form and momentum, it lacks the inherent abilities of the object itself. For example, Wei Yi painted a white scorpion. Even if he depicted the real white scorpion, its manifestation is merely superficial, lacking its true strength and magical powers. The power it can exert, its actual combat effectiveness, and its duration of sustainability all depend entirely on the amount of brush and ink energy Wei Yi concentrated during the painting, as well as the power bestowed upon it by the artistic conception of the painting. The artistic conception of a painting is something that can only be understood, but not expressed in words, and it depends on Wei Yi's creative realm. Of course, there is another way to enhance the power of the object being transformed, by combining it with the technique of penetrating deeply into the wood. If combined well with the piercing into the wood 3 minutes skill, the power of the transformed object could be further enhanced, even allowing it to draw upon the power of heaven and earth. Wei Yi had previously suspected that painting and calligraphy skills would complement each other. Especially after the forest of ink and brushes was upgraded, painting could also enhance the brush and ink energy. Wei Yi suspected that future abilities gained through painting would also utilize brush and ink energy, and even synergize with those gained through calligraphy. Currently, the leaping onto the paper skill combined with the piercing into the wood 3 minutes skill is a perfect synergy. In the future, these paintings could truly become magical treasures. Hanging them at home could protect the home, or in the shop, it could deter treacherous individuals from causing trouble. They could even be used to achieve a surprising and effective victory when necessary. In fact, many of the calligraphy scrolls, even some ornaments and statues in the shop, had been imbued with the piercing into the wood 3 minutes skill by Wei Yi, imbuing them with abilities to ward off evil, avoid disaster, and attract wealth. Unfortunately, the brush and ink energy he had accumulated wasn't enough to meet his needs. So, today, Wei Yi decided to make Du Shaoling his first penman. He officially began his journey of recruiting apprentices. He would train more penmen to help him cultivate his artistic talents. Towards evening, Wei Yi finally finished the painting of Beza. It was meticulously detailed and incredibly realistic. It was lifelike, vivid, and seemingly natural, as if it truly existed. Its demeanor, appearance, and majesty made one feel as if they were witnessing a real mythical beast. Even knowing it was a painting, its majestic presence still evoked a sense of oppression. One could imagine that, if it were to materialize, its imposing presence alone would be enough to intimidate and daunt one. Wei Yi framed the painting and hung it on the wall. It was almost time to prepare dinner. Wei Yi had been making sure to prepare a daily nourishing herbal meal. This herbal meal's effects on longevity and strength far surpass those of his previous health-preserving recipes. Furthermore, these medicinal foods can help strengthen the family's physical fitness, improve their health, and prolong their lives, ensuring a healthy and resistant body. My aunt is now well, and my sister is radiant and in great shape. My sister has also grown taller and bigger. Even Su Lingyan, who occasionally eats and drinks at the Wei family's house, has seen her chest rise and fall. It looks like she's at least a pair of A's. Of course, the most noticeable change from these nourishing medicinal foods is Shitao. He's almost as tall as Wei Yi now, with immense muscle mass and unbelievably much stronger than before. Wei Yi had also previously requested a martial arts training manual from Guo Pixiu for Shitao to practice. Unfortunately, Shitao's talent for cultivation isn't high, and he has absolutely no interest in it. Because he was also hosting Du Shaoling that evening, Wei Yi prepared 2 extra dishes. Du Shaoling arrived at the Wei family's house at twilight hour, as scheduled. Wei Yi had a servant take him to the living room to rest. When the meal was ready, Wei Yi served 2 portions, and had servants bring them to the living room, where he and Du Shaoling would share. The rest was taken to the dining hall for his family. Master Du, I've been waiting for you. Please take a seat, Wei Yi said as he arrived. Master Wei, you've worked hard. Du Shaoling bowed and smiled. He then sat cross-legged at his desk, raised his glass, and said, "Thank you for your hospitality, Master Wei. I'd like to offer you a toast." Master Du, you're welcome. Wei Yi followed suit with a glass of wine. They then dined together. Du Shaoling, naturally, was full of praise for Wei Yi's cooking, and the two of them shifted from food to conversation about the academy. Wei Yi was now the deputy principal of King Feng Academy, second only to Du Shaoling in status. Although he only occasionally visited the academy to give lectures and write a poem or 2, he was still a regular at the academy. But if we talk about fame and influence alone, Wei Yi is now even superior to Du Shaoling. After a long while, the food was gone, and Wei Yi finally got to the main topic of the day. Master Du, have you ever imagined that one day, scholars will also possess extraordinary power, that poetry can kill enemies, lyrics can destroy armies, and writing can even calm mountains and rivers? Wei Yi said with a serious face and conviction. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Du Shaoling was naturally a little surprised. However, he felt that Wei Yi's meaning might be more than the superficial one. After all, he had never heard of poetry being able to kill enemies or lyrics being able to destroy armies. After a moment's pause, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "Haha, Master Wei is right. Knowledge truly possesses extraordinary power. It can enlighten wisdom and help people escape ignorance. For individuals, reading is the foundation of life. For nations, civil governance can ensure national prosperity. In military terms, only by thoroughly studying the art of war can one understand the art of deploying troops and the methods of marching and winning. So, reading truly can grant a person abilities beyond the ordinary. I'm talking about simply killing the enemy, using the power of words to transform into extraordinary magical skills and techniques to directly kill the enemy," Wei Yi said firmly. "That's incredible." Du Shaoling was astonished, thinking Wei Yi was joking. While this world contains demons, ghosts, and warriors and Taoists, each possessing their own magical powers and mysteries, a scholar without martial arts or cultivation is just an ordinary person. Despite possessing superior knowledge, their strength might even be inferior to that of a rough laborer, let alone transforming the power of words into magical skills and techniques to kill the enemy. However, since it was Wei Yi who said this, he did not dare to question it. After all, Wei Yi was an immortal in his previous life, and his knowledge was naturally far superior to his own. Especially when he saw Wei Yi stand up, walk to the side, fetch a brush from somewhere, and then walk to the middle of the house. Du Shaoling's expression also became serious, and he looked at Wei Yi intently. "Thank you to Shang Jiu Shan Lan Yu Zhao Wu Yang Zuobi for the reward of 500 starting coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets." Chapter 97 shocked Du Shaoling. "Master Du, watch carefully. This is the moment to witness a miracle." Wei Yi smiled faintly. Immediately, he picked up his pen and began writing in the void. Rays of light gathered at the tip of the pen, eventually transforming into 2 clear characters, "Unbroken." Du Shaoling was stunned by the sight. He had never seen such an extraordinary sight before. It felt like a dream. Yet, he could clearly feel the vibration of the air around him as the 2 characters formed, sensing a certain aura emanating from the words. Then, a second later, Wei Yi's pen swept across. The word "unbroken" flew out, transforming into several blades of light, hurtling towards a nearby chair. With a few crackling sounds, the chair shattered into pieces, scattered across the floor. Du Shaoling was completely stunned, his eyes gaping, his mouth wide open. He stared at the shattered chair in disbelief, his heart filled with shock beyond measure. But even after the shock faded, his heart began to beat wildly, and a long-lost surge of blood seemed to well up within him. Could this be the extraordinary power Wei Yi had spoken of, the scholar? Poetry can slay enemies, lyrics can destroy armies. Could words truly possess tangible power? The phrase inch severing meant to chop an object into many small pieces. Looking at the shattered chair, it was clear that the very meaning of the words had been transformed into some kind of tangible force. Incredible, truly incredible. Isn't this a Taoist spell? Du Shaoling still found it somewhat incredulous, thinking it might be some kind of magic. Something only cultivators could cast. Similar, but not. Magic is performed by cultivators using their true ki, whereas I just use the concentrated power of the brush and ink, transforming the artistic conception of words into might. Wei Yi said sternly. The brush and ink? Du Shaoling's eyes brightened, but his expression remained bewildered. After all, the information he had just received was simply too much to comprehend. It completely overturned his decades of understanding, yet it seemed to open up a whole new world for him. That's exactly what I was saying. Scholars can also possess extraordinary powers. Martial artists can cultivate blood ki through practice, and practitioners of the Tao can cultivate true ki through practice. And we scholars can cultivate the spirit of calligraphy and painting through writing and painting. Wei Yi spoke word by word, leaving Du Shaoling deeply shocked. He had never imagined that scholars could cultivate. He had never imagined that the spirit of calligraphy and painting could transform into extraordinary power. Really? How can I cultivate this? Du Shaoling's heart was filled with excitement, his gaze burning intensely. He wished he too could possess extraordinary powers. He wished his knowledge could be transformed into combat power, capable of truly destroying enemies and armies. In this world where force reigns supreme, the status of scholars depends entirely on whether those in power value the principles of civil governance. Clearly, His Majesty does not value scholars. This is why the Shinran cult has disrupted the imperial court. These scholars, powerless to resist, can only be manipulated and left to languish. If scholars also possessed extraordinary powers, they would have a fighting chance against those treacherous officials. They would no longer be so passive in the court. This is the main reason I asked you to come here today. I recently awakened some memories of my past life and mastered this cultivation method. If you wish, I can teach you how to cultivate the key of the brush and ink, allowing you to also gain extraordinary powers, Wei Yi said solemnly. Du Shaoling's heart pounded upon hearing Wei Yi's words. He was thrilled. Wei Yi was actually offering him this cultivation method. He could possess such extraordinary powers in the future. Was he really dreaming? Looking at the shattered chair on the ground, Du Shaoling knelt with a thud. With his hands clasped together, he said word by word, "Master, please accept my disciples' greetings." Du Shaoling knew well that someone was offering him such an extraordinary cultivation method. How could he not perform the ritual of apprenticeship? Furthermore, he sincerely wanted to become Wei Yi's disciple. Even beyond Wei Yi's talent, he admired him immensely. The extraordinary power displayed today had once again captivated him. And just as Wei Yi had said during his lecture that day, when three people walk together, there must be one who can be my teacher. Therefore, a disciple need not be inferior to his teacher, nor a teacher need not be superior to his disciple. There are differences in the order of learning the Dao, and in the specialization of skills. Therefore, there is no age or status distinction in becoming a disciple. Although Wei Yi is younger than him, he surpasses him in both knowledge and ability. Moreover, he was an immortal in his previous life. For a mere mortal like him to be able to worship such an immortal teacher is the result of merit accumulated through 3 lifetimes of cultivation. Naturally, he must be grateful for the appreciation of his teacher. Master Du, please rise quickly. There is no need for us to be bound by these formalities. Since you are willing to respect me as your teacher in your cultivation, I will make you my first student and pass on this method to you. But remember, this matter needs to remain confidential for the time being, so we can continue to get along as before, Wei Yi said with a smile. I understand. Du Shaoling bowed again and responded respectfully. Sit cross-legged, close your eyes, and concentrate. I will now open the forest of ink for you, Wei Yi said. Du Shaoling, his expression serious, immediately obeyed, sitting cross-legged and concentrating. Wei Yi placed 2 fingers between his eyebrows, then, with a thought, connected Du Shaoling with his own forest of ink. Instantly, Wei Yi felt the vast energy of ink flowing into his own sea of consciousness, transforming into a forest of ink. As expected, Du Shaoling possessed a vast amount of ink energy. Simultaneously, Du Shaoling felt his consciousness suddenly drawn into a mysterious world. Before him lay an inky forest. Countless words transformed into ink marks, eventually converging into majestic trees. This forest you see, is the result of the energy of ink and brush, condensed by us scholars through our constant writing and painting. This is the source of our power. Wei Yi's voice echoed above the forest of ink. It also seemed to echo in Du Shaoling's mind. He was both shocked and excited, as if a whole new world had opened up in his heart. He had gained some kind of true knowledge. From today on, you must persist in writing and painting, and constantly practice the spirit of brush and ink. I will also gradually teach you how to use the spirit of brush and ink, so that you can gain extraordinary power. Thank you, Master. I will definitely practice hard, and live up to your expectations. Du Shaoling said. Okay, open your eyes. Wei Yi retracted his finger. Du Shaoling also opened his eyes, and his consciousness returned to reality, as if everything he had just seen was an illusion. But the broken chair told him the truth that everything happening now was real. And he only needed to concentrate a little to perceive the forest of brush and ink just now, and he could see the ink-colored forest again. Thank you for subscribing. Chapter 98 The Orange Katu Exercises. This is incredible, truly incredible. Du Shaoling was so excited that the wrinkles on his face trembled, but his eyes became more vigorous and brighter. His aura seemed to have subtly changed. This is just the beginning. Once you can wield the energy of brush and ink, you will feel its power. Wei Yi said with a smile. I never dreamed that I would one day gain such extraordinary power, that the power of words could truly kill the enemy. Du Shaoling still found it difficult to calm his excitement and joy. After all, this was a change that completely overturned his cognition, but it was also a change that opened the door to a new world. He really didn't know how to express his inner joy and gratitude to Wei Yi. Teacher, please accept my students' greetings again. Du Shaoling bowed again. Master Du, from now on, you and I can just call me that. Some things should be kept in our hearts, and we'll both know each other. Yes, student. No, I'm simply overwhelmed. Master Wei, from now on, in my heart, you will be my teacher, and I'll never forget this kindness. Wei Yi smiled, then changed the subject, continuing his thoughts. The path we cultivate is what I call Confucianism. Currently, it's not enough for just the 2 of us. We need more like-minded individuals to join us and cultivate the art of calligraphy. Only with more people joining our Confucianism can we gain greater strength, and with unity, we can overcome all dangers. Therefore, I hope that King Feng Academy will become the foundation for the development of Confucianism, cultivating like-minded students to join us, cultivating the spirit of calligraphy together, and secretly accumulating strength. Only then can we one day eliminate the treacherous and corrupt, restore order in the court, and let the world witness that we scholars possess not only integrity and righteousness, but also extraordinary power. Wei Yi's words sent a surge of emotion through Du Shaoling's heart, his blood boiling. This was exactly his ambition. In fact, Wei Yi spoke so because he knew Du Shaoling's dream. A qualified leader must be able to paint a rosy picture, and that picture must align with the core needs of his subordinates. Only in this way can they be motivated. Du Shaoling's ideal was to eliminate treacherous officials, restore order to the court, and restore order to the world. While achieving this wish was difficult, one must always have dreams. Wei Yi wanted to establish King Feng Academy as his own Confucian and Taoist school, and he needed someone to select and cultivate students who would share his vision and ideals. More precisely, students who would be truly loyal to him. Du Shaoling was naturally the perfect candidate. Wei Yi could now clearly see many faces in his sea of consciousness. Most of them were students and teachers from the academy, but there were also some he didn't recognize, likely scholars from the city. Their clear appearance suggested a certain talent in attainments and literature. They also possessed a profound understanding and emotional resonance with his poems. They were also a group of people who genuinely recognized and admired him. They were also candidates for his future writing position. After Du Shaoling left, Wei Yi went to the practice room to hone his fitness skills. But just as Wei Yi entered, he saw a ginger cat lying on the floor, doing sit-ups. Yes, the ginger cat was doing sit-ups, and he was very serious about it. Although the movements differed from those of humans due to its animal size, Wei Yi knew it was just sit-ups. This exercise was also part of his current fitness routine. To be precise, with the exception of sit-ups, the ginger cat could do almost all of Wei Yi's fitness exercises. And not only did it know how to do them, it was incredibly diligent. Every day, besides eating, sleeping, and beating up other cats, it would spend most of its time exercising here. It was even more self-disciplined than Wei Yi. It had long since shed its puffiness and become truly strong. Wei Yi even thought that, if he peeled back the fur on its belly, he'd be able to see its 8-pack abs. This story began over half a month ago, when Wei Yi's beast taming skill advanced. Upon reaching the 4th level, Wei Yi gained a new magical power called Beast Taming Contract. This power, combined with his calligraphy skill, allows him to use the energy of his brush and ink to form a specific seal, infusing it into the soul of an animal. It's akin to the art of penetrating wood. Once the contract is established, the animal becomes incredibly close to him. They can even connect telepathically, clearly sensing each other's emotions and thoughts. This is a form of communication far beyond language. Of course, Wei Yi also gains greater control over the animal's behavior. After establishing the beast taming contract with Orange, Wei Yi discovered that he could develop a strange telepathic connection with Orange. He could clearly sense Orange's emotions and thoughts, allowing him to better control Orange's thoughts and actions. However, Wei Yi also discovered a slight drawback to this ability. Whenever he and Orange activated telepathy, whenever they saw Su Lingyan's small pair of vases, he would have the strange urge to step on them. However, Wei Yi knew this was the orange cat's idea. It was simply a mutual resonance, a result of telepathic connection. The orange cat's feeble consciousness and emotions naturally couldn't influence his thinking. However, Wei Yi's consciousness and thoughts clearly had a profound impact on the orange cat. Ever since establishing the beast taming contract with Orange, Wei Yi had felt that it seemed to foster the awakening of the animal's intelligence. Since then, Orange has become noticeably more intelligent. Even its eyes have taken on a more humane expression. Since then, whenever Wei Yi worked on his fitness skills, Orange would imitate him. Furthermore, Wei Yi's recent dedication to fitness, hoping to reach new heights, and his cultivated self-discipline, had a significant impact on the orange cat's personality and thinking. The orange cat became obsessed with following Wei Yi's training. Now, even better than him, it's even more diligent and disciplined. Furthermore, Wei Yi had noticed that the orange cat would come over to look at his writing lately. It was just that his handwriting was too fast for the cat to see clearly. Otherwise, this guy might have to pick up a pen and write in a few days. Seeing Wei Yi walk in, Orange stopped and meowed at Wei Yi. Wei Yi could clearly sense its joy and its desire to exercise with him. "Come on, let's do it," Wei Yi said with a smile. He immediately began warming up. Ever since Wei Yi started eating medicinal food and drinking medicinal wine, he was surprised to find that every time he practiced a fitness skill, his proficiency increased significantly. This was understandable. However, the nourishing effects of medicinal food and wine had a significant impact on his body, accelerating the results of his fitness. Eating those health-promoting vegetables before probably also had some benefits, but the effects were not as obvious. So he didn't pay much attention to it at the time, and even thought it was just a fluctuation in the values, caused by the intensity of his fitness. Chapter 99 Green Dress and Purple Skirt. The next evening, Wei Yi was dragged by Guo Pixiu to Hangxia's Heo. Hangxia's Heo was a high-end brothel in the city, a social and entertainment venue for the upper class. Its guests were either wealthy or noble, scholars, or high-ranking warriors. Furthermore, according to Guo Pixiu, the women at Hangxia's Heo were all very knowledgeable. Each possessed a talent, not only singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments, but also mastered chess, calligraphy, and painting. They were all meticulously nurtured from a young age, and many were even members of the music troupe. selling their skills rather than their bodies. For example, Miss Liu Ru, a prostitute from the capital's Jiafangxi, was rumored to have danced for many high-ranking officials. Upon arriving at Hangxia's Heio, Wei Yi discovered that it was nothing like his typical brothel. Standing at the entrance were heavily made-up women, posing coquettishly and flirting with silk, soliciting customers with suggestive words. From the outside, it resembled some elegant venue, adorned with colorful lights and ribbons. Waves of beautiful musical instruments continuously emanated from within. "Young Master Guo, you're here." Seeing Guo Pixiu's carriage stop, a servant at the gate hurried to greet him. "Hurry and announce that young Master Wei has arrived." Guo Pixiu tossed the servant 2 copper coins. "I understand." The servant ran inside excitedly. Wei Yi followed Guo Pixiu out of the carriage and together they entered Hangxia's Heio. The interior was magnificent yet elegant. Despite the constant chatter, it was not noisy. Beautiful Qin music echoed through the hall, and a group of girls in light gauze danced on the raised platform. The guests around drank wine and enjoyed the music and dance. There were also some beautiful women accompanying them, chatting and behaving appropriately. Many elegantly dressed people stood by the second-floor fence, each accompanied by a beautiful woman. However, as Wei Yi entered the hall, servants and stewards immediately came forward to greet him, saying respectfully, "Young Master Wei, we are so honored to be here. We apologize for not welcoming you." The steward's words caught the attention of the crowd. Many people in the room knew Wei Yi, and upon seeing him arrive, some quickly rose, smiling and greeting him. In an instant, Wei Yi became the center of attention, not just the guests. Even the courtesans' gazes were fixed on him. Even the musicians stopped playing, and the dancers paused their movements, their eyes fixed on Wei Yi, their eyes filled with curiosity. After all, the most famous and sought-after person in the city right now was undoubtedly Wei Yi. Countless rumors swirled about him, and countless people were curious about who he was. Was he, as the legend said, a figure from a painting, a fallen immortal? The girls, in particular, had long admired Wei Yi. You know, Wei Yi's poems about drinking were sung by countless drinkers. Drinking song was especially popular throughout the brothels, becoming a popular choice for those literati and poets to recite aloud when they were in high spirits. So, in King's House City, besides King Feng Academy, the brothels were where Wei Yi had the most fans. Just then, a commotion was heard from upstairs. It was the dancer Liu Ru descending the stairs. The men present couldn't help but look at Liu Ru as she descended the stairs. Wei Yi also took a closer look at the woman who had captivated Guo Pixiu. She was truly stunningly beautiful, with a natural allure. Her eyes were captivating, and her figure fulfilled every man's fantasy. She was big where she should be, slender where she should be, with curves perfectly formed, a graceful and alluring figure, truly a stunning beauty. Seeing Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu being treated by Liu Ru to an exclusive private room upstairs, the guests on the first floor were buzzing with discussion. Many envied Wei Yi, fearing he would have a good time tonight. Others envied Guo Pixiu's good fortune, having a friend like Wei Yi. The women, however, remarked on Wei Yi's appearance and demeanor, their eyes filled with admiration. A young woman in green stood alone by the second floor railing, her gaze intensely fixed on Wei Yi as he entered Liu Ru's private room. She looked to be only 16 or 17, yet equally captivating and beautiful. A closer look revealed her pupils, transformed into those of an animal, a faint golden halo shimmering deep within them. She watched Wei Yi until he disappeared through the doorway, then reluctantly withdrew her gaze. With a faint smile of surprise, she turned and walked into the private room behind her, closing the door behind her. Inside the private room sat a woman in a purple dress, playing the guzheng. Her features were equally strikingly beautiful, and her appearance was quite pure. However, her eyes held a hint of melancholy, giving off a certain pity. As her music played, 2 young men embraced each other, twisting their bodies to the rhythm. Their eyes were hazy, their cheeks flushed, and their faces wore lewd smiles. Had Guo Pixiu been here, he would have undoubtedly recognized them as Wanzai and his good friend. It wasn't that they had sexual issues, nor were they drunk and intoxicated. Rather, they were under a spell, lost in the illusion, conversing with the beautiful woman about life. The green-clad girl looked at the two with disdain and complained, "Senior sister, can't you just let them lie on the ground and sleep for a while? It makes me sick." Don't you think it's funny? They spent a lot of money to come here and show us the ugly side of life, well, all kinds of human behavior. How can we not appreciate it?" A harmless smile appeared on the purple-clad woman's face. They're just too disgusting. I can't stand it." The green-clad woman pouted in disgust. Then she leaned over, turned her head, and waved her sleeves. A flash of inspiration passed, and Wanzai and his good brother fell asleep on the ground, hugging each other. I feel like I'm going blind, senior sister. What kind of special hobby do you have?" The purple-clad woman smiled without saying a word, and continued to play her guzheng. "What happened outside just now?" the purple-clad woman asked after a moment of silence. Hearing this, the green-clad girl suddenly became interested and said excitedly, "I was just about to tell you about this. It's that Wei Yi who's here, senior sister. Wei Yi is truly extraordinary. Although I can't discern any cultivation within him, he exudes the power of heaven and earth, like a master who has attained enlightenment. Furthermore, his physique seems unique, emanating an aura of supreme strength and masculinity, as if a ball of true fire is condensed within him. And for some reason, just looking at him makes me want to get close. It's a truly wonderful feeling. If he stays here tonight, I'll go investigate carefully." "Don't you hate humans? How could you have such a thought?" The purple-clad girl stopped playing the zither. "Yes, I'm just curious. I want to find out what's so special about Wei Yi," the green-clad girl said nervously. "Since you've already said he's extraordinary, approaching him rashly could be dangerous. We are here for serious business. If you get distracted and miss out, don't blame me for being ruthless and not saving you. I know. I won't run around. But, senior sister, what on earth did master send us here for? We've been sitting here for so long, and we've done nothing but stay here," the green-clad girl said sullenly. "I don't know, but master must have a purpose for making this arrangement. We should just calmly await master's next instructions." The purple-skirted woman continued playing the zither, strumming a melodious melody. Chapter 100. The first batch of students. When Wei Yi arrived at the private room, Liu naturally expressed her admiration for him, her affection barely concealed. Jiuo Pixiu, though diligently present throughout, remained nearby, her gaze fixed on Wei Yi. But Jiuo Pixiu had grown accustomed to this. With Wei Yi, even if he were decked out in gold and jade, he would still seem like air. Wei Yi was simply too dazzling. Moreover, it was thanks to Wei Yi that she had even been able to enter Liu's private room and be received privately by her. She was already quite content. After chatting for a while, Liu offered to dance for Wei Yi's entertainment. She changed into a red dress, which accentuated her already captivating features. Several musicians played a beautiful melody, and Liu danced gracefully in her red dress, her delicate figure glimpsed beneath the veil, inviting the imagination. Her dancing was breathtakingly graceful, as if dancing on the tip of man's heart. Though there were no flirtatious gestures or suggestive overtones, Wei Yi's heart raced with excitement. No wonder Liu captivated countless men in the city, and captivated Jiuo Pixiu. Her reputation truly lived up to its reputation. Wei Yi watched, entranced, while Jiuo Pixiu, beside him, half opened his mouth, drooling. Even after the song ended, Wei Yi still felt a pang of satisfaction. It must be said that watching Liu dance was truly a feast for the eyes and a true art form. So, no matter what world you live in, as a man, watching young women dance is the key to eternal youth. Liu and Wei Yi drank some more wine together, and they couldn't help but reminisce about their past at the Jiafangxi. She even casually mentioned how she and Han Kuang, from the Maoin Fang, both hailed from the Jiafangxi, and shared a close bond like sisters. Hearing these words, Wei Yi looked at Liu meaningfully, then smiled and nodded. He felt that Liu might also be a member of the Xiangsha alliance. Despite this, Wei Yi didn't fully trust her until he had a thorough understanding of her background. So, although he longed to see the paid portion again, he would have to wait until later. After a while, Wei Yi, seeing that it was getting late, prepared to leave. Liu Ru had no intention of keeping Wei Yi, but simply expressed her hope that he would visit more often in the future. After all, she knew that Wei Yi was wary and wouldn't stay the night. Furthermore, this was only their first encounter, and if Wei Yi really wanted to stay the night, she would be deeply disappointed. Brother Wei, why don't you stay at Miss Liu's? What a great opportunity. If you're willing, you could spend the night with Miss Liu Ru tonight. Guo Pixiu said with regret on the way back. Tell me about the various brothels in this city. Wei Yi changed the subject. If you're talking about brothels, I won't be sleepy anymore. Guo Pixiu, in high spirits, began to recount to Wei Yi the past and present of the various brothels along West Lake. When Wei Yi returned home, the energy of writing in his mind was still growing. He hadn't expected Du Shaoling to be even more diligent than himself. It was almost midnight, and the old scholar was still cultivating. Sure enough, outstanding people are often more diligent than others. But think of how he came from a humble background, yet managed to pass the imperial examination, become the top scorer, and even become a literary giant. Besides his natural talent, he must have endured immense hardships. The saying burning one's head on the beam and piercing one's legs with a needle is commonplace. Now that Du Shaoling had embarked on a new life, his passion had naturally been reignited. But the old scholar was no longer young, and Wei Yi was worried his health wouldn't be able to cope with his hard work. Send him some medicinal wine and medicinal food tomorrow to nourish him. Don't let him damage his liver. Wei Yi thought to himself. After all, cultivating the key of writing didn't offer significant physical benefits. Du Shaoling was already quite old, and Wei Yi was genuinely worried his body wouldn't be able to handle the effort. However, encouraged by Du Shaoling, Wei Yi decided to focus on his writing skill for an hour before retiring. Now, with the added bonus of his furious writing skill, his handwriting speed was incredibly fast, though it was a bit paper intensive. Furthermore, his daily focus had been on writing and fitness skills. So, even though it had been less than a month since his last level up, his writing skill was only 23% away from advancing. It was now on par with his fitness skill. However, this was because his writing skill was currently progressing from level 5 to level 6, while his fitness skill was progressing from level 3 to level 4. Therefore, the proficiency required for each level up was significantly different. After an hour of frantic writing, Wei Yi couldn't help but feel a little exhausted. After all, this kind of high-intensity writing consumed not only physical energy, but, more importantly, mental energy. It was truly demanding. Since it was getting late, Wei Yi packed up his desk and went back to his room for bed. Seeing Wei Yi lying in bed, the cats in the room joined him, huddling around him. It was cold, and the cats loved sleeping close to him. After all, Wei Yi had his own little stove, keeping him very warm. But Orange, naturally, wasn't among them. Wei Yi knew he was currently training in the training room. This was his peak energy. If I could get my hands on some demonic cultivation techniques, maybe I could help Orange become a spirit, Wei Yi thought to himself. But exhausted, he quickly fell asleep. The next day, Wei Yi went to King Feng Academy with his homemade medicinal meatballs and nourishing wine. He told Du Shaoling that these foods and wines were to aid his training. He urged him to consume them in moderation, balancing work and rest, and not to harm his body. Du Shaoling naturally believed him. However, Wei Yi noticed that Du Shaoling looked very healthy, without a trace of fatigue or haggardness. Perhaps the human spirit truly can triumph over the flesh. With renewed hope and passion in his life, his body also felt revitalized. Master Du, I have a list here. This is the first group of students I've selected. Wei Yi handed Du Shaoling a piece of paper with 30 names written on it. Besides the Academy's current teachers, the rest were among the Academy's most talented students, each deeply admiring Wei Yi. Some were originally from wealthy families, while others were from less privileged backgrounds who had been admitted through the imperial examinations. But they all had one thing in common, a profound aura of calligraphy and painting. Okay, when do you plan to teach them the methods of cultivation? Du Shaoling asked. Tomorrow morning. Please explain to them what Confucian and Taoist practice is for me. Wei Yi said. Okay, I understand. By the way, yesterday I wrote a set of rules and regulations for Confucian and Taoist disciples. Can you take a look at them later and see if there are any that need revision or improvement? Du Shaoling asked. Wei Yi had previously told him that establishing a Confucian and Taoist practice system meant founding a new school. Given this, it's natural that there must be sect rules and regulations to govern disciples' behavior and regulate their thinking. Very well, Master, you've been thoughtful indeed. We do need our own sect rules and regulations, Wei Yi said with a smile. Indeed, handing this matter over to Du Shaoling was the perfect person. With him around, establishing a sect would be a seamless process, saving him a lot of hassle. Furthermore, with him managing the academy and its students, he could be hands-off and focus on developing his skills. He wouldn't even have to worry about him becoming complacent or escaping his control. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.